pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To let you know that the board met immediately prior to this meeting for an informational session regarding the budget process for more education on how our expenses are broken down, and an executive session to discuss a legal matter. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Is there a need to amend the agenda for any additions or deletions?
Yeah.
Ms. Small?
I'd like to request that we move one of the policies that's currently up for first reading. So item 13B2, policy 006. I've gotten some feedback and some discussion. We'd like to take that policy back to committee instead of voting on it for first reading tonight. So if we could delete that from the agenda.
Understood. Any other additions or deletions?
What, so is that a motion to amend the agenda? Or?
Yes.
Second.
Do we go through that process, or do we approve the agenda with the corrections?
There was a motion to remove it.
Motion.
There was a second.
Okay.
So we can
Discussion?
discuss and then vote.
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Yes,
This
Mr.
is
Vogelman.
first reading. This would come back for second reading, am I correct?
Correct.
So-
I just think there's going to be significant enough changes that I think we should discuss it in committee again, based on the feedback that I've gotten.
What is some of that feedback?
Yeah, can you
Well, I'd
share
rather-
a little more?
I'd rather not discuss it tonight and belabor it. If we could just talk about it in committee, that'd be great.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, but if we're at the 11th hour amending the agenda, we should know why and have an opportunity.
It was just some additional questions. I don't think the policy is where we want it to be at this point, based on,
What are those questions and who raised them?
Yeah, there shouldn't be anything secretive
Well,
about
it's
it. We
not
should be able to
secretive.
share.
I'm just saying we can discuss it. That discussion can take place in committee.
Okay.
I'm glad to, yes, several board members had some questions about some language and some things that they'd like to see changed. in
Okay,
there.
Can we share those during this discussion period before we take a vote on amending it?
yeah, I mean, if this is relevant, it might be that we're all in agreement that those are things that, yes, we should talk about, or they might be things that the board doesn't care about, so we're going to keep with it. But we can't just vote to amend the agenda at the 11th hour without knowing why we're voting to amend the agenda.
So the discussion was related around recordings of meetings being made public and potentially adding that to the policy. And then, what was the other? There was a question about, what was the other question? No, see, this,
Yeah.
I didn't think we were going to discuss it
Yeah, I
tonight,
didn't
so I
think we
thought
were
we were
going
going to
to
discuss it during committee, so I didn't bring all of those comments with me tonight.
We still have an opportunity to discuss it again before it comes back for second reading and then approval. So I would suggest let's move through the first reading since we spent extensive time on this the last time, and then we can discuss it at the next committee meeting and bring it back for second reading.
Dr. Musser, could I ask
that's
if you have any
absolutely-
feedback on that from the policy standpoint?
We can do it either way at the end of the day. I did reach out to PSBA to get some additional guidance along some of those things. I'm always a big fan of getting it in a spot where the board's pleased with it the first time, but there's nothing preventing this from revisiting the policy at the February meeting.
Well, if we make edits after first reading, does it have to then go back for another first reading?
Depending on the severity of the edits, that's going to be a board decision, but if there is significant changes to the policy, I would encourage it to go back to a first reading so it can go through the normal process. But that's a board decision.
If I could just, as a point of order, I mean, since the point of first reading is to give the body the opportunity to make changes, I would recommend, Mrs. Small, that we do not remove it from the agenda, but rather when it comes to first reading, the board can have discussions, and it might well be that what you and others are proposing is a good idea.
I think at this point, there's a motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Is there any other comments that we haven't already heard? All right, let's go ahead with the motion to remove item 13B2 regarding policy 006 from tonight's agenda. All those in favor?
To bring it back to first.
To put it back to first reading.
No,
That committee.
To committee, to
Already
committee.
Bring it back to
first.
committee
Right,
for
to put it
discussion.
back to committee, to bring back to first reading there.
I'll repeat that. There is a motion on the floor to amend tonight's agenda, removing item 13B2 regarding policy 006, to send that back to committee for discussion. Is that what we're all discussing?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor, say
Aye.
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 Aye. Do you have what you need, Ms.? Did you get that? Opposed?
No.
4. And everybody is present tonight, so the motion carries 5-4. So that said, we need to approve the remainder of tonight's agenda.
Okay, I have another, I guess I'll just preface it as a point of order or a question. We are being asked to approve a resolution binding the district to very significant expenses. My and that happens during this meeting. My understanding is during the finance meeting, we're going to be told potentially how we're going to pay for this. Are we putting the cart before the horse? And should either the presentation occur in this meeting prior to the vote, or should the vote on the resolution be kicked to after the presentation during the finance meeting?
My understanding is that the vote on the resolution is in no way binding on the district to move forward with the construction project. It is to publish the announcement of the Act 34
That
meeting.
is what I have been told as well, Mrs. Brady, but the problem is that's not what the resolution says. The resolution speaks in very definitive, unambiguous terms about what the board is authorizing, the cost of the project, and it does not speak in alternatives, it does not speak in hypotheticals. So I am not comfortable voting on very commanding language, which is what the resolution says. And I raised this issue with the board. I raised this issue in an email.
I checked.
And I did not get responses that assuaged my concerns. So I would prefer not to delay the Act 34 hearing
Correct.
and be able to vote on this resolution now, but as it stands now, I can't reconcile the language of the resolution with my current understanding of either the cost of the project or the financing framework.
Let me ask a clarifying question about the resolution, realizing this is part of the process. Part of what I think Mr. Keener's hung up on is the total school, number 3, the school district authorizes a total project cost of $228,222,610. So the last we talked, we were at about $225 million, not $228 million. And so this is asking for our authorization. As I realize this is a bit of semantics, my question is, if we authorize this at a lower number, does that become a problem later? Or is this truly not that number, not a big deal?
The latter.
Okay.
The Act 34, as what was shared with me by our solicitor, talking with others, the Act 34 hearing and the information that is in the booklet outlines all potential total costs, and the change is additional from a financing standpoint, which ultimately will be wrapped into the borrowing. But they have to articulate in the Act 34 booklet all potential costs. That's that total cost component. The secondary piece to this, which is the primary reason for the Act 34 hearing, is the total new construction cost, which is not to exceed. The reason that can't exceed is because when you go through all the calculations, you have to get a total new construction cost, and by law, that when the bids come in, if they exceed 8% or more, you have to or more than 8%, you have to have a new Act 34 hearing to address those additional costs. The Act 34 hearing is solely about new construction. without getting into the weeds, was that general synopsis correct, Mr. Orr?
Yes, that general synopsis is correct. Also, as discussed, the total project is not a number that is held. It's not regulated by Act 34, so that total project cost can go up and down. That's not the regulated piece. The only regulated piece by Act 34 is the maximum building cost
New construction.
of the new construction, the new addition. So renovation, site work, any of those pieces are not regulated by Act 34. And that's all that the resolution is asking you to approve, is that
Is the percentage the reason that we need the 228 million in there? Because couldn't you put $1 in there under that theory?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand your
So,
question.
I'm being a little ridiculous, but to make a point, I'm asking the question, if I took $1 and put it in there instead of the $228 million, does that cause a problem?
No, you can go above that total project cost. That it is not regulated by the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yep. And so if you look on in the booklet, which you all have access to, it will be online tomorrow, it'll be in the administration building as well. Page 29 articulates the breakdown of the new construction costs, as well as the figure at the very end, line D, which cannot exceed, in terms of that additional 8% of that cost.
Right.
Everything else is just a factor of where it is. Okay?
Okay, please, I'm just, when you're done,
Yep.
I have my hand up,
And
that's
so
all.
it is a standard resolution that is put forward, that numbers are inserted in, and has been advised to us by our solicitor not to adjust the language, because if you start adjusting the language when this gets reviewed and submitted to PDE, if you change the wrong thing, then you have to do it all over again, including the hearing.
Mr. Keener.
Thank you. Okay, I hear everything that's being said. Everything that's being said makes perfect sense, and I agree with everything that's being said. I can't reconcile what's being said with the unambiguous language of paragraph 3 of the resolution that says, and I quote, "The school district authorizes a total project cost of $228,222,610.00 and a maximum building construction cost of $117,732,772.00 in connection with the project." That's what this says. I can't read that as anything other than what it says, that we are authorizing that project cost. And I don't understand why everyone is sitting here saying, ignore what it says and listen to all of this chatter in the ether about what it really means.
And the reason.
So that's what I'm struggling with.
And the reason.
Now, we can amend the language here, and there's certainly
cannot.
things that we can do.
We cannot.
I'm sorry? What?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's certainly things that we can do to paragraph 3 that would address my concerns, but I can't support a resolution that's sort of the most formal thing that we as a board do, with a mandatory roll call vote, okay? The most solemn undertaking that we take, and then say, this isn't what this means. So, and nothing that I have heard reconciles those two things. I spoke with the solicitor today. He, as you say, Mr. Bomerski, doesn't want us to play with this language, but wasn't able to tell me why. And more importantly, he wasn't able to explain why paragraph 3 says what it says.
And
Maybe, go ahead.
The whole notion of the resolution is that the board is saying that we are looking to do this project. You are not committing to the project. What you're committing is the opportunity for the community, which is the purpose of the Act 34 hearing, to come and provide the board with additional input beyond what has already been done. The board will commit to a project only after bids are received and then awarded to actually do the project and contracts are signed.
What paragraph is that in, Mr. Bomerski? What you just said?
I'm
In the resolution, what paragraph is it?
It is not, I'm sharing with you my understanding, and I'm going to turn to the experts that are in the room, from a financial advisor and the architect, who do this regularly with school districts, to either confirm or deny that.
Thank you. My name is Ken Phillips with Raymond James. It's a pleasure to be before you again. In answer to your question, there are two numbers stipulated by the Pennsylvania Department of Education that must be publicly advertised Those numbers strictly come from the Plan-Con process, planning and construction process.
Okay.
The booklet, do you have a copy of the booklet?
We have a copy of the booklet.
Okay,
We have access.
fine. It comes directly from the pages that is required by PDE. So let's talk about maximum project cost, the 228 number.
But it doesn't say maximum project cost, sir. That is my concern.
doesn't.
My argument is solely a textual argument based on what this resolution says.
It says total cost on the first line of the
Yeah,
total cost of the
Total
project.
project cost, okay.
And then
It
the
total-
max-
doesn't say maximum.
It
It
says,
doesn't say that.
it says total, and then on the secondary piece for the maximum cost for the new construction is why it needs to say, is again, my understanding, I didn't write it, it's just my understanding, it needs to say maximum total of the new construction cost because that is the trigger for the Act 34 hearing.
Maximum building construction cost, correct.
Correct.
Total cost, maximum cost, Mr. Keener, the same thing for PDE. The total cost, by definition, when you look at the Plan-Con pages, Plan-Con's DO2 and DO3, it points you right to a line item as to what that is. The total project cost comes from that line, okay? Whether it's maximum project cost or total project cost, it's strictly a number. Mr. Orr said it perfectly. The 117 is the key number. 'Cause
Okay?
that's
And I
the
have
key
no
number.
issue
Yeah.
with the 117.
That's the key number,
But then why is the other part in there?
because by law, it has to
required.
be in there.
Right. And
It
so,
has to be
Okay,
advertised.
So are you telling us, are you telling us that we are not actually authorizing a total project cost of 228 and change?
No,
That
you are
That's not really
authorizing.
what we're authorizing.
You are authorizing.
We are authorizing it.
Well, yeah, but
So
you
that's my
have to.
concern.
But not
Which
to
brings me back to the other thing I'm saying is, we don't know how we're paying for $228 million.
You're authorizing
thank
that
you for that.
cost, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna spend that cost, okay? That doesn't mean that at all, okay? The 228 strictly is a PDA formula from their pages.
Okay?
If the project comes in at 215, it comes in at 215. If it comes in at 245, it comes in at 245. Okay? The 228 is strictly driven by a PDE
So it's a made-up
page.
number?
No, it's not a
No,
made-up number.
it's-
Okay.
It's calculated by a
It's
formula.
calculated per PDE. The 117 is the key number.
May I jump in?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Keener, I believe I can summarize your objection
Okay, please.
in that if we could change the resolution to not say total, but to say maximum, would that help you with your concerns?
So if you look on page
Well, and then
26,
that was my next thing, is
of the
on the
booklet.
form itself, it specifically calls it, the line item actually says total project costs.
correct.
And
That's-
then on the 2 pages down, or 3 pages down, it uses the maximum building construction cost. So those are the terms used by PDE, and I assume that's why the resolution is written the way that it is.
Okay, we've just received information at the 11th hour that says that in addition to all the other costs that we're talking about, there are going to be substantial bond issuance and legal fees, which, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't budgeted for, are not included in, so
that's,
this
Mr.
gets worse and worse.
Mr. Keener.
Mr. Keener, take a pause. Let
What
Linda-
this says is an answer to your question that you submitted to our solicitor, where he said that he would check with our bond counsel, and she says the total cost likely has the bond issuance and legal fees built in, which is why it is above the project number you heard at the last meeting. That's what it says there, which is the project, with a project this large, will be substantial, meaning those costs, which is why it's up to that 228, and they have to account for all of those pieces. It does also share that she goes on and reiterated what we discussed about this only being a step in the process and not locking the district into any amount in the future. She advised against any edits to the amounts listed since all the calculations in the booklet would need to be reevaluated, and she advised against adding any language to the resolution. That was from our solicitor who checked with our bond counsel. So that's
Okay.
why it's there. It does not lock the district in. It solely allows us to proceed with the Act 34 hearing, which is an opportunity to hear from the community. We will have to go back and formally approve any contract, bids, et cetera, to the project, so that no time is this board committing to actually doing the project until bids come in and down the road. It simply allows us to have a hearing to hear from the community, despite the efforts, which is important.
So are we comfortable that this is binding legal advice from a solicitor saying that we can ignore the language of the resolution and that it's not locking us into anything?
I am 100% comfortable, because not only have I heard it from our solicitor and also from our bond counsel, but everybody that I've talked to in this process, that this is not locking the board into anything, because
Okay.
A, you're not signing and approving a contract, nor am I signing and approving a contract. And there are no bids to this project. So at this point, the only way for us to proceed with the Act 34 hearing is to have a resolution approved, it needs to be advertised for 20 days, and then allow for that hearing to occur, which is scheduled for February 17th. So if it is not passed tonight, we will have to cancel the Act 34 hearing, because we will not have enough time to publish within 20 days.
I think
Look,
at this
we don't
point-
want to cancel this. Oh, go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I said, we don't want to cancel this. My question simply to you about that 228 being changed to $1. Apparently, that can't be done because of the booklet. I thought you said it could in the beginning, but I think I'm hearing that it can't be changed because it's tied to all of the projections in that book. It would require a complete redo of everything.
It is tied to the financial projections, you are correct. However, it's not a regulated number by,
Yeah.
the state of Pennsylvania is not going to collect your total project fees at the end of this project.
And I was only asking that because if that number could have changed to 225 to satisfy Mr. Keener's concerns, we could have made that change without changing language, but apparently that number can't be adjusted, so.
I think we're at a point where we need to decide if we are amending the agenda any further or approving it as it stands. So, do I have a motion to approve the agenda with the previous deletion of 13B2? Mrs. Eshelman, a second.
Second.
Ms. Small, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Keener, Mr. Wolgemuth. Motion carries 7-2. We're down to approval of the minutes of the previous regular board meeting held on January 13th and the minutes of the Education and Programs, Policy, Personnel, and Legal meetings also held on January 13th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Mr. Best, second.
Second.
Director Linton, all those in favor? Oh, excuse
Aye.
me, any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Moving on to recognitions, Mr. Bomerski.
All right. Well, good evening. It is great to see all of you. Thank you for those who came out to our meeting. Thank you for those who were online. Tonight, it is my extreme honor and privilege to be able to introduce to you Andrea Rutledge, Landisville Middle School reading interventionist, who was selected by the Pennsylvania chapter of the National Teacher of the Year organization and has progressed through that entire process to a finalist. And I had the privilege of joining Andrea and her family, as well as Noah Albert, a student of hers, as well as Noah's parents, back in December for a really wonderful dinner that highlighted, and we got to hear directly from all of the finalists, but more importantly, the award celebration, which recognized all of them. And at that celebration, the Teacher of the Year finalists had the opportunity to have a student come and speak on their behalf. And so it was absolutely remarkable to hear all of the students who were selected. But being able to hear Noah talk about Andrea, and I've been in Andrea's room a lot over the years, I'm getting the chance to see her, watch her interact with the students, and she truly exemplifies a level of professionalism that far exceeds what we would hope to aspire from an educational standpoint. Her passion, her dedication to the students, to the parents, to the community is just truly remarkable. She has an innate fire within, who's always looking to do better to improve her craft to help her students. So much so that it's not just about her students, it's really anyone that she interacts with, because one of my daughters had the privilege of meeting her several years ago at a district function, and she sat down right next to her and started talking, and one of the questions she asked her is, "What are you reading right now?" And she thought that was really cool that she was interested in what my daughter was reading. And just so much that every once in a while my daughter will say, "How's that teacher doing who asked me about what I was reading?" Like it really took a big impact for her. And so on behalf of the district, I just want to thank you, Andrea, for what you do every day within the schools, for our students, for the community. I know Mr. Cox is here as building principal, but your passion, your desire to improve your craft is truly motivating, and getting to see your interactions with the students is just absolutely wonderful. And so on behalf of the district, we are so thankful that you're here as part of a Hempfield team and what you do every day. And I'm not going to ask Noah to read his remarks, but one of the things that struck me about his remarks, and if you want to come up here for a second, Noah, before I have Mrs. Rutledge come up. Come on up. It is not easy to come up in front of a group. This is a much smaller group than what he had the privilege of speaking in front of. It also was streamed online. But one of the things that he talked about was just some of the obstacles that he's overcome through his education. And I was able to connect with that, things that he was saying, because I was that student as well early in my elementary and through middle school. And it was because of a teacher that I had, like Andrea, that really made that impact for me. And so it was really awesome for you to be able to be there and speak on her behalf. But is there anything you would like to say either to the board or to her with regards to what she's done? I didn't think so because I knew you, but I just want to say thank you for doing that. And on behalf of the districts, and we'd like to just give you this to say thank you for representing Hempfield so well at that major event across the state. And it was just an honor to get to know you and your family a little bit while we were there. So thank you very much. Then Mrs. Rutledge, if you would come up. So again, thank you for what you do day in, day out. I know you love what you do. You can feel that passion, and you see it in everything that you do. And so on behalf of the district, we'd just like to recognize your outstanding achievement of being selected as a finalist for the Enstoy PA Teacher of the Year. So, congratulations.
I appreciate the trust and confidence that you put in me to design and implement supports for our students and staff across the district as we collectively elevate literacy K-12. I am grateful to work with phenomenal principals like Mr. Cox, who give me flexibility to innovate and entertain the many ideas that I bring forward. This honor is a reflection of partnerships with students and families like Noah's, and teachers and administrators together. I'm eager to build on the momentum that we're building and to carry it for years to come across that field. So thank you.
Anything from the board?
I had the privilege to be to visit your classroom a couple of weeks ago, and while there weren't students in there at that moment, I could just feel there was so much personality and calm at the same time of it feeling very calm and warm and inviting. It was invigorating at the same time just to be in that room, what you've designed. And I hope I can get back sometime when the students are actually in there with you to see you in action, but thank you very much.
Mrs. Rutledge, I just want to say congratulations and thank you for everything. You're a true asset to this district. My niece had you in middle school and you were one of her favorite teachers, and I had the opportunity to visit your classroom earlier this month, and I can tell by the environment that you create really why your students love you, so thank you.
As another board member who has visited your classroom, I would like to commend, when there are students in there, I would like to commend you on the work that your students put forth that day. You know, it was wonderful to see the level of engagement, the level of creativity, and knowing that, even if, so the students on the day I was there were giving a presentation while we were there, and they had some strangers in the room. So it was a testament to your work with them to see what each of them produced, and the way that you worked with them in the moment to continually uplift them through the process all the way to the final product. So thank you for your work.
Anyone else? All right, thank you again. Did you have anything else?
Nope, thank you again, congratulations, and you're welcome to stay if you'd like. If not, we understand.
All right, the next portion of our agenda is resident comments. The board provides a time of public comment for residents and taxpayers to bring their thoughts to the board, but it is not a time for exchange between the board, administration, and speaker. We ask that speakers refrain from identifying specific students, staff, or community members by name. Residents and taxpayers who are interested in making public comments must complete the electronic registration form prior to 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Tonight, we have one request to address the board.
Good evening. I am deeply concerned about the implications of the PA Supreme Court's ruling in Coleman v. Parkland School District. This ruling allows the PA state and local governments, including school boards, to make last-minute additions to the agenda by a simple majority vote. This means the board could add an unpopular or controversial item to the agenda at the 11th hour, hoping to avoid hearing from the public, thus avoiding a large turnout for public comment. It also means if the board doesn't think something will pass when the full board is present, they can wait for key dissenting board members to be absent from a meeting, then add the item to the agenda at the last minute and pass it, at least for the first reading, or potentially if a school board member would have a last-minute long-term injury or illness. I'm definitely not saying that I think this board would do something along those lines. When discussing this during the last board meeting, I heard a director ask why the board would tie its hands. You would voluntarily tie your hands because it's the right and ethical thing to do. It is also the transparent thing to do, providing your constituents with every available opportunity for public comment, whether that's the first read, the second read, the final read. 24 hours notice still leaves many families with childcare and transportation challenges, not to mention some individuals facing barriers to attending meetings in person due to disabilities and medical issues. Without 24 hours notice, you are even further eliminating, or at the very least, reducing the public's opportunities to comment. For all of these reasons, I am requesting that the board amend policy 006 and put in writing a clause spelling out and codifying the previous understanding the board was operating under. This will commit the board to not making any changes or actually additions to the agenda with less than 24 hours notice to the public, barring a true emergency. Again, to clarify, I'm saying additions, not necessarily deletions. The public has a right to comment on all votes and actions being undertaken by the board, and we cannot do that if we don't know in advance what is going to be added to the agenda. Barring a true emergency, there is no reason to add an agenda item with less than 24 hours notice to the public. Out of respect for your constituents and the honor of the seat you hold, I request that the board make this an addition to policy 006 and hold themselves to a higher and more transparent standard than does the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Jevons. We will move on to item number 5, the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you and good evening again. Just a few quick updates. As you know, with the recent weather, I want to thank our Mrs. James and our entire maintenance custodial crews who've been working tirelessly since that snowstorm started. Trying to do their best to keep up with the storm, driving around again today. You've done really, really great job, so thank you for that. As was already communicated, we do need a 2-hour delay tomorrow because there are some roads in various areas of the townships and boroughs that still need some additional attention. The townships and boroughs are working on that, and the hope of a 2-hour delay will give them some more time to address some of those roads that will make it very difficult for buses to traverse, not only trying to get down streets that potentially only one car could get down right now, but also hopefully some more snow can be removed so that students aren't kind of hidden at bus stops from the high levels of snow at this point, especially in dark hours. So they'll be working on that. We'll stay in touch with both the townships and the boroughs, and we'll see what happens on Thursday. The other piece that I just want to remind the board with regards to the calendar of events, everything is on there for the upcoming meetings, just so you can see, as well as the enrollment report. The last thing that I have is actually just seeking some guidance, direction from the board, specifically one area that I tend to get a lot of questions about throughout traveling the district, talking with individuals, is policy 325 with regards to our dress and grooming for staff. And so within that policy, it stipulates that the board has the authority to specify reasonable dress and grooming requirements. I'm checking here with the board to see if there's anything specific that I need to be mindful of. Historically, we've had a document in the district of kind of the do's and don'ts. I personally don't feel that that's needed, but you do have the authority as the board to set that direction, set that guidance. I think if our staff hears professionalism and kind of outline a general piece, that should suffice. But because the policy stipulates that, I'm just seeking some direction and/or guidance. And I want to just turn it over to see if anyone has any thoughts or advice for me as I continue to explore that topic, given that it's one that gets a lot of attention.
Personally, I feel like the policy itself can stand by itself. The second to last paragraph, employees shall be physically clean, neat, well-groomed, and dressed in a manner consistent with assigned job responsibilities. And then finally, groomed so that hairstyle does not cause a safety or health hazard. Personally, I feel like that is sufficient. As a professional, in our office, which has engineers, accountants, et cetera, we have a relatively relaxed dress policy, but it's still expected that everyone looks professional. I feel like, I trust the administration to set the expectations however they see fit. Personally, I don't feel like a very strict dress policy is needed.
Any other comments?
I'm very supportive of making some changes here, and don't really like the do's and don'ts either. But I do think that the policy needs some work, just because it says the board has the authority, and I think that we should change that to say something along the lines of a designatee, that could be the administration, just to provide some clarity and get rid of some of those gray areas. I'm not saying that we can just have that reflected in the minutes and then work on that at the policy level just to keep everything moving.
Understood. Any other thoughts or comments?
My only thought is, isn't this something we should discuss in the policy committee?
That's what I'm trying to get a sense
Yeah.
of.
I mean, I
Does
don't mind
need
if
to
it
go
comes through
there,
the policy
or-
committee and we take a look at it. I mean, I'd maybe rather do that than have the discussion in a board meeting about a policy that hasn't been in front of us to review. So that's just my thought.
Yeah, I mean, the only previous time we heard about this was an email circulated to the board saying, what do you think about this? Which probably is something that we should be talking about in public.
That's where we
But
are
I
now.
agree
Yeah.
that the conversation should occur in policy, not as something that's not even on the agenda this evening. I mean,
Well,
I'd agree.
like
Well,
if
I'm
we're
the
going
one
to talk about agendas and adding things to agendas,
Mr.
and then we're
I'm the one seeking advice because I'm the one who has to carry out the district's, the board's expectation, and I'm trying to get a sense of, does this need to go back to policy, or is there a general consensus of expectation?
Mr. Bumiersky, do you have a deadline on this? Like, is this something that needs to be decided in the next couple weeks, couple months? I mean, because I'm in agreement. I think this conversation, like many conversations this board tends to get engaged with or engage in, could go for a long time. So I think if we can circle our thoughts around it, so that it's beyond more than just an email sent back to one board member, I think it's probably not a bad idea. I think bringing it back to a policy meeting, I think is a good thing, because I think you're going to have nine separate opinions on this, quite honestly.
Yeah, I
With shades of
agree.
gray.
I really think it needs to be on the policy. If there's a desire of the board to add that to the policy committee as a policy review, that we review, then let's go ahead and do that. I don't see a sense of this being an emergency that we need to kind of dive into this discussion tonight.
I guess for one of the questions that I have is, the policy as it stands does not match our practice. It is my understanding. So I guess what necessary, I guess I just don't understand what's on the back end with the do's and don'ts, whatever, and where that came in connection with policy. Because for me, the policy as it stands is fine. I think it's the addition that we've had later on top of the policy that's causing issues.
Mrs. Small,
Yeah, so
Please allow her
I
to
would
finish.
say I'm fine with the policy as it's written and getting rid of any extraneous things that are adding extra layers on top of this expectation. So that's my perspective.
Okay. Ms. Lynn, or Director Lynn, did I see you have a hand? No? Mr. Keener, okay. I just want to make sure everybody that hadn't talked
No,
yet
I
could.
appreciate that. What additional things are there? I mean, I actually agree. I think the policy as it's written makes some sense. I'm happy to talk about it. If people want to add things or be more directive in the policy about what's permitted, what's not permitted, sure, we can have that conversation. I absolutely agree that the policy committee is the place to have it after proper notice to the public on the agenda and not something that's sprung onto the meeting at the 11th hour.
I guess
I guess what I would like to know is, Mrs. Small, what are your concerns? What are these additional layers to which you refer?
I believe that there's extra dress code that is pushed out to our staff, delineating what is acceptable and what is not, that is much more specific than what's in this policy.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. This back and forth, while productive potentially, is the reason why we discussed the importance of bringing it back to policy meetings. So let's do that. We can talk about what these extra layers are, what they mean, what they don't mean, which way we go, which way we don't go, because yes, while certain things are being pushed out, there's also things being pulled away too, right? Like if I wanted to wear jeans every day, I just have a spirit day, the end. And I have 131 spirit days in the day. So bottom line is, I think this is a conversation personally for, unless there's some deadline we have to hit, and I respect your ambition to gain insight from us. I think there's a time to do it.
I'm just trying to gain insight as to whether I can proceed with things that I'd potentially like to do, or if not because of the policy, which at this point I don't believe I can. That's why I'm just checking here. So I'm hearing a good amount of potentially going back to policy at this point.
I mean, my understanding is we're in compliance with the policy. Mr. Bramerski is just asking, can he move forward with his changes? Because as long as it's still within policy, then it doesn't need to come really to the board.
Mrs. Eshelman? Thank you, Mr. Best.
I'm going to echo what I heard from Mr. Bramerski was not a discussion about changing policy. What I heard was Mr. Williams stating that he, in the future, would like to tighten up the language in the policy, but the direction that Mr. Bramerski was seeking was not related to the written language in the policy, but kind of the implementation of that policy through him as the superintendent.
Okay.
So I hear what some of the board members are saying about this should be a policy discussion, but what I was hearing from the get-go is that this is not a discussion about changing policy, but the implementation of the policy, which comes to our superintendent. And what I'd like to say what I think about that, which is go for it. I trust our staff with my children every day, and I trust that they can dress themselves professionally depending on their role and what they do day to day with our students. And if there's any way you, as the superintendent, can make that easier for them and we can spend less time discussing this, I'm all for it. So I just wanted to give you that.
Mrs. Eshelman, thank you for saying the quiet part out loud, because this is what I sort of was wondering what was going on here, okay? Because I've been on the board a long time. So has Mr. Bomerski, has been the superintendent a long time. He has consistently advocated for some amount of employee dress code and benchmarks and like standards of dress depending on what someone's job is. A custodian has different physical demands on their job than a teacher, than an administrator, than a cafeteria worker. They all do important things. They all should be dressed according to the job that they're doing. And Mr. Bomerski, in my experience, has always advocated for that level of distinction. So what I'm not understanding is why this wasn't on the agenda. If we're looking for sort of a sense of the board, or if the board wants, if the administration wants a sense for the agenda, why wasn't there something on here under superintendent's report for discussion about district dress code or the lack thereof?
Because it's under the superintendent report, because I'm just seeking clarification from the board with regards to the line that stipulates that the board has the authority to set reasonable dress. Mr. Keener, you're not wrong. I do believe that staff should be able to and need to dress based on their roles.
Right, and you've always said that.
Correct. My point at this point is, do we need to be pushing out a list, or in a sense it's been brought up, this policy is clear. If the board is comfortable with this policy, I can articulate that further without needing the whole list of do's and don'ts, is basically all I'm asking for. So based on this policy, if the board is still comfortable with this policy and giving me the authority to do that, then I'm good. That's what I'm trying to seek out here. If their board is saying, no, we want to go in a different direction with regards to employee dress, the board has the authority to do that. I don't. So that's what I'm just trying to gauge at the moment.
You have, in my opinion, we have a policy in place, and until we change that policy, you have full authority to move forward with the policy that's in place. And that's where I stand, and I think that's the simplest, easiest path forward. If the board desires to bring that policy back and have a discussion about it, we do it in the proper manner in a policy meeting. We took one off today, and we surprised one and brought one in. None of it makes sense to me. It seems like we're doing all kinds of wacky things. So at the end of the day, I would just ask and say that you can follow that policy.
Perfect.
That's the board has that policy in place that shouldn't be challenged right now. If there's a direction that's different than that, then this board needs to discuss it.
And that's, I just want to make sure, because if I follow the policy, I don't believe we need a list of do's and don'ts. And that's,
But why are we having this discussion?
because
That's
I'm
my
trying
question.
to gauge.
I'm curious what behind-the-scenes conversations led to this discussion.
It's not Mr. Bomerski's doing for this, so let's
No,
just be
because
crystal
I'm
clear.
beginning to suspect
This
that as
started
well.
with the board.
Can we stop for a second?
Please stop.
I'm
Mr. Bomerski will
asking
give you the
question,
answer.
Because as I stated at the beginning, I get this question a lot, as does my team members, as out in buildings and districts. And so I'm trying to address something on a larger scale, but as I look at policy, the board has the authority. I just want to make sure I'm not overstepping. If I'm going to go down a path of wanting to make some changes, as long as I'm adhering to the policy and the board collectively is not looking to change that policy, I'm good. I'm just seeking guidance. I'm not looking for policy change. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just seeking clarification, because as with anything, if we push something out, you are going to hear about it, as will the community, and here we go. And so I'm just trying to be proactive as I'm getting these questions, and I get them regularly as I'm in buildings. So I'm just looking for some guidance as I keep working on things as I do within the district. So I'm just looking for a quick yes or no, kind of general, like, we're good or not. Mr. Wogemuth, your answer, perfect, thank you. I'm just trying to get a consensus of the board if this is something that I do need to bring back to policy or not.
Why wasn't this on the agenda?
Because it's on the superintendent report, and I'm trying to work through some things on, as what I'm required to do as a superintendent, to carry out day-to-day operations of the district. And in my superintendent report, I am allowed to ask the board questions and seek guidance and direction, which is what I'm
In
doing.
fairness to Mr. Bomerski, he didn't create this mess. This was mishandled from the beginning by the board, so I'm clearing you of any
This is not.
craziness
to be
related
clear,
to
I don't
this.
think it was mishandled by you
okay,
either.
Please
okay?
stop.
I'm
This is
just-
not
We're
any
not
one.
pointing fingers at anybody here.
This is absolutely not. I'm just trying to gauge, because this is a big topic that gets discussed across our district. And I'm trying to work through things and move the district forward. And so I'm just trying to gain guidance. I figured the best spot to do that would be when all of you are in the same room. So I think I have my direction based on what I'm hearing. The board's good with the policy as it's written. I will continue to proceed as I need to. Thank you. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Next, we move on to the president's report. Let me get my glasses here. Not much to say, although I did enjoy more building visits over the last couple of weeks. Several of us on the board were able to serve as guest judges at the middle school and high school piano competition. I'm not sure how valued or valid my judging was there, but it was a very enjoyable experience for me, and I believe I can speak for Director Linton and Ms. Small as well. A lot of time in the last 2 weeks working on the high school building project and various meetings related to that. And on my own end, I'm trying to formulate a long-range planning calendar for board topics, board training sessions, and I'm trying to get that to gel for the year ahead. Moving on next, we have representative and adjunct reports. I'll start with safety and security with Mrs. Eshelman.
Just an update for the public on the Centegix project. The test was done with our County 911 dispatch. It was successful. Our administration let us know that there'll be continued conversations and discussions now that this connection is established, and continue work back and forth on that. I'll be part of a district safety meeting coming up this Thursday, barring no other weather issues. And just as part of our safety here, thank you to the maintenance team and our custodian teams for all the work they've been doing in preparation for getting people back. We really appreciate it.
Is that everything?
That's it.
Great. Ms. Small, the PSBA liaison.
Sure. So yeah, new board members should by now have access to My PSBA and the schedule for either the live or virtual trainings that are offered. Let me know if you need any information related to those trainings, as well as the scheduled meetups for new board directors. Governor Shapiro will be giving his budget address on February 3rd. PSBA is going to offer a legislative update for the 2026-27 proposed budget after that announcement on February 6th at noon. I am planning to attend that session and will report back. If others would like to attend, you can register on My PSBA. The Penn SSI School Safety Summit is going to take place on March 26th. And give a tour of that facility, as well as updates in that area, and that's also something that you can all register for. And then looking ahead, Advocacy Day in Harrisburg is going to be May 4th, and let me know if you're interested in registering for that event as well.
Thank you. Standing committee reports. We start with education and programs. Mrs. Eshelman.
The Education Committee meeting was held on Tuesday, January 13th. I want to thank Kathy Dicely, Jason Hoffman, Lisa Sempsey, and Meredith Goodrich, all for their presentations. We have music textbook adoption and the transfer between entities proposal on the agenda for this evening. And of course, we had a review of the parent-teacher conferences because they have differed in the past, and continue to work on those and just kind of learn from what happened this time, but keep some kind of consistency so the second time around we see how it goes from Dr. Dandridge.
Thank you. Ms. Small, can you report on the policy, personnel, and legal meeting?
Sure. I want to thank Director Linton for running that meeting while I was attending virtually. We discussed some 0-0 policies about board reorganization and had some discussions about potential revisions. We have some of those brought back for first reading tonight. We will continue to talk about 006 at our next meeting, as previously discussed. And then there are also some policies from the previous up for second reading tonight.
Okay, thank you. Item 9 on the agenda is personnel action items. I am looking for a motion to approve personnel action items 9A, number 1 through 10, as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Keener.
Second.
Director Linton, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Number 10 is the Buildings and Grounds action item. As we've already discussed at length, this is in reference to the approval of the Act 34 resolution. I will remind you that we did all have access to this very lengthy document. We've reviewed it for the last couple of days, seeking clarification. I know many of us did have questions that hopefully have been answered, though it sounds like some are still withstanding. Reminder that this is a legally required and necessary step in our building process, but it does not mean it is a final vote approving our construction project. So I am looking for an approval, a motion to adopt the Act 34 resolution and the advertisement pertaining to the potential Hempfield High School construction project.
So moved.
There is a motion on the floor. Director Linton, go ahead. Mr. Keener, was that a second? Or?
No, it was not yet. I just have a question, but
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Wolgemuth. Mr. Keener,
I would
discussion?
request that President Brady's statement confirming the advice that we received from council that this is not a binding commitment to move forward with the project be explicitly included in the minutes.
Yep. I had already planned to do that.
Pardon me?
I already planned to put all of that in.
Okay.
Thank you for that point. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, I think this is a roll call vote. So, should I just go around
No,
the
the
table?
next one is a roll call.
Or do
The
you-
next one is roll call.
Yep, Chris will do
Or
I
is
believe
that?
the next one
It's
is
the
roll
next
call.
one. The
Yeah, this is
resolution
not a
is
roll
not roll call. It's the next one that's a roll call. Excuse me on that. Is that correct?
Act 34, we can do a roll call.
It doesn't have roll call.
It doesn't. We can do it? Okay, so go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Thank you. Caleb Best,
Aye.
Judy Brady,
Aye.
Megan Eshelman,
Aye.
Grant Keener,
Aye.
Kate Linton,
Aye.
Aaron Small,
Aye.
Patrick Wagner,
Aye.
Makai Williams,
Aye.
Justin Wogomuth.
Aye.
That carries 9-0.
And Mrs. Rhodes, you will include those statements in the minutes. Okay, thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to finance action items, the first of which is the approval of a resolution for the 2026-27 budget. This will be a roll call vote and recommending a motion to adopt the accelerated budget opt-out resolution certifying tax rate within the inflation index for the 2026-2027 school year as presented. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Wagner? Any discussion? Okay, this one we do need a roll call vote.
Okay.
Ms. Rood?
Caleb Best,
Aye.
Judy Brady,
Aye.
Megan Eshelman,
Aye.
Grant Keener,
Aye.
Kate Linton,
Aye.
Aaron Small,
Aye.
Patrick Wagner,
Aye.
Makai Williams,
Aye.
and Justin Wogomuth.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 9-0. And moving on to approval of contracts. I'm looking for a motion to approve the contracts as presented, and it looks like it is contracts related to the air balancing engineers, contract for commissioning services for HVAC upgrades at Landisville Primary Center. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Small. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Linton. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Number 12, Education and Programs Action Items. These were both presented at the last Education Programs Committee meeting. And the first is, make sure these are going together, it would be both B and C, the textbook adoptions and the transfer of entities. Looking for an approval of the intent to seek the transfer of entities for 2 autistic support classes at school and school-based high school emotional support from Lancaster Lebanon IU 13 to Hempfield School District, and motion to approve the education and programs action, well, that is that, textbooks, the textbook adoptions as listed in your agenda.
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Eshelman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? Motion carries 9-0. We are on to number 13, policy action items. Looking for approval of policy action items. Make sure I'm pulling the correct one out here. B, pulling out item number 2, which was discussed earlier, and letter C, second reading of board policies 829, 907.1, 909, 911, and 912. Is there a motion to approve policy action items 13B through 13C as presented?
So moved.
Director Linton, motion? Oh, I'm sorry, that was Ms. Small for the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Eshelman, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Number 14, other action items. The approval of exchange student visitations. This would allow the Horizons Dumont Exchange Organization to facilitate the visitation of 20 French students and 2 French teachers to shadow our students and attend our buildings on February 12th. Is there a motion to approve the exchange student visitation as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Linton. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Keener. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No? Or opposed? Motion carries 9-0. And we come to the end of our regular board meeting. We will be resuming following this meeting. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll resume after this meeting to our finance and buildings and grounds meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Best. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. We'll be back at 7:05.
I'd like to call the finance meeting to order. We will start with residents' request to address the board, of which we have 0 residents that have requested. So we'll go ahead and move on to, by the way, before I get into this, Mr. Graham, can you confirm who we have online, please? Mrs. Hall still on? She is. Fantastic, because she's going to be doing a presentation here in a few minutes. Is anyone else online that we need to be aware of?
Chris Suller from Bolivia.
Okay.
That's a number of the audience as well.
Okay. Fantastic. I appreciate that, Mr. Graham. I will go ahead and pass the mic on to representatives from Raymond James, who will be doing a presentation for us with respect to our borrowing capacity as well as financing and revenue generating options for projects we have coming up. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time. The floor is yours.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. John Fry from PFM, the district's financial advisor, here tonight with Lauren Stato and Ken Phillips from Raymond James. Great to be with the board again. I think I know Lauren and I were here almost exactly a year ago, so another cold January meeting at Hempfield for us. But great to be here. Always interesting topics and progressing with the district's important capital projects. We've been in front of the board, various times over the last several years with different borrowings and financings. And we were here tonight just to provide a financial update on the steps of, next month's Act 34 hearing and some exciting things down the road as far as the projects and some borrowing potentially this year for those projects. But just here tonight with a financial update and to, answer any other questions that the board may have at this time. So we put together just a brief presentation, and Lauren will go over some updates on the financing numbers that you've seen previously from the team. But just on page 2, just to provide a kind of brief current situation or overview, just to recap, the district has a very strong credit rating. So every time a school district in Pennsylvania or the country has to go and borrow money and issue bonds, you have to go to a credit rating agency to put a rating on the bond so investors know the credit worthiness that they're buying. So we, Hempfield, each time, again, we'll have a process where the superintendent and the business office and the financing team here will get on the phone with Moody's and go through a really interesting process of give and take of financial and demographic information and update on the district. But currently the district, again, has a very strong credit rating of Moody's AA2, which we expect to be maintained with your next borrowing. The existing debt, the principal outstanding is about $92.9 million, okay, of existing debt. We'll go over that in a little more detail in the next couple pages, but that's the principal amount outstanding. Again, in a page or two, a little more detail, but the borrowing capacity, and from time to time, districts, clients of ours want to know what the borrowing capacity is. The borrowing capacity for a Pennsylvania school district is a formulaic number that is calculated basically continually and annually updated, and so it does change. But currently, as we sit here now, it's about $244 million of estimated borrowing capacity. And again, I'll go over that in a little more detail, but that's the borrowing capacity right now. Financing projects, we've gone through this with the board previously, but in the Act 1 era, after 2006, where you're limited, as you very well know, with your vote that you just had, you have Act 1 index that you need to stay under each year. It's important to always be building millage in advance of projects because you can't just increase taxes over that index when you need the money. So you've been doing a nice job of maintaining that, but that will continue to be put in place each year to make sure we get to the revenues needed to support the bonds. Basic rules, the legal rules, we have to always look at the IRS and Pennsylvania laws when borrowing, but one of the main questions we get is how far in advance of a capital project can we borrow, and the IRS allows you to borrow within, as long as you have the reasonable expectations, to spend about 85% of the money in 3 years. So you can't borrow, I have a project in 5 years, so it's a reasonable expectation to spend the money in 3 years and move on with due diligence after that. And capital projects, as your bond counsel and solicitor will give their opinions, the bond issues can only be used for capital projects and refinancings of bonds that issued for capital projects. You can't issue for, salaries and other operating expenses. The timeline, we have a very good relationship here with the financing team in the district, but, so we're able to be here and get quick action, but it does take time between the offering document that goes out for the bonds, the credit rating process, and then the state's process to settle on the bonds. It takes 60 to 90 days from the time we get kicked off to the time you get the money in your account. But again, we always have very good dialogue here between the teams to make sure we get the money when you need it. Page 3, just a brief recap on the Act 1 index up at the top. Over the last couple years, and this is the base index. I think Hempfield gets adjusted slightly higher, but the base index was as high as 5.3%. A couple years ago, came down to 4. This year's at 3.5. And based on some current estimates from the state, looks like as inflation is still there, but has coming down from the highs of the last couple years, it's anticipated that the index will also trend downward as well, which again makes all that important for budgeting and planning all the more important. And then on page 4, we were asked to just show the calculations on how borrowing capacity is derived. And again, kind of like the Act 34, it's very well spelled out, and you have to follow whatever the local unit government debt act laws are. And so whenever we do a bond issue, this goes into your official statement of what is the debt capacity, and the formula is up at the top. There's some the revenues, and then there's certain deductions that are needed to be taken out per the debt act, namely for Hempfield, the rental and sinking fund reimbursement, namely the PlanCon reimbursement that you get on some of your existing debt issuances. The state makes us deduct that from your revenues, but then you take your total revenues over the last 3 years, what's the average of that, and then multiply it by 225%. And that gets you your debt limit of $336 million. And then when we take out the $92 million of principal outstanding as of now, that's where you get the $244 million. But there's two things that change over time. The revenues increase each year, so each year that goes by, your revenues go up and get multiplied by the 2.25. So that increases on that side of things, and then each year your principal comes down. And so I think right now you're paying down about $6 million of principal each year. So between those two things, you could expect that without doing another borrowing, that your debt capacity will go up $10 to $15 million a year. So it is it kind of moves, but it is a good, again, it's something that'll be kept track of on each borrowing.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about the district's existing debt. I think it's a good reminder of kind of where we're at and where we're headed. I know a lot of you have seen this information before, but it may be newer to some of you. So we'll walk through it kind of step by step. If anyone has any questions, this is an open dialogue, so please feel free to raise your hand if you need any clarifying items, kind of made clear to you. But this page 5, is a summary of the district's outstanding in debt. You have 10 separate bond issues currently that you're paying debt service on. Columns 2 through 11 are the individual annual principal and interest payments that you're making on those 10 individual bond issues. Those have paid for a number of different projects over the years. Several of those issues were refinancings of prior issues. We do have some footnotes that get into that. But in general, this information is helpful to us as we continue to think about how we're going to be financing the high school project. So you can see on the far right side there, the annual total principal and interest payments are right now about $9.9 million, going up to about $10 million for the next several years, and then beginning to drop down in 2033 or so. Several of these transactions do have upcoming call dates, and as always, we are making sure we're paying attention to opportunities to refinance any of your existing debt for interest expense savings. And so as we're going to be in the market for potentially some bonds for your high school, we're going to also be paying attention to see if there's opportunities to refinance those existing bonds. So the 2000, bless you,
2021A bonds, pardon me, the 2021 bonds there in column number 6, we're actually past that call date, but they are outstanding at such a low interest rate that we will likely never be able to refinance those. A lot of those transactions that were done in 2020, 2021, 2022 may never be refinanced, but we'll always keep an eye on opportunities to do that. So tonight we're going to really focus on the high school project financing, but be aware that you'll probably see us back here in the next year or two talking about some debt refinancings as well. So these are all of the total principal and interest payments that you make on an annual basis. The next page nets out that PlanCon subsidy that John talked about a little bit ago. So prior to 2018, there was a program that the state had in place whereby they would pay a portion of the debt service for new capital projects that increased student capacity. They wouldn't pay for new gyms, boilers, HVAC systems, that sort of thing, but building projects that were really geared towards student capacity, the state would chip in a percentage of debt service. And so you have a number of transactions that are still receiving PlanCon subsidies, and those are detailed in the footnotes at the bottom. You can see where we state the school share versus the state share. So on a few of your bond issues, the state is chipping in around 10%, give or take, of your total debt service. But since 2018, there's been a moratorium in place from the state on any new PlanCon projects. And while there's always grand ambitions by the general legislature to bring PlanCon funding back, it gets axed year after year after year. And so we continue to advise districts that they need to plan on footing the entire debt service payments yourselves. We still are required to fill out some of those PlanCon forms to go through the Act 34 process. They are antiquated forms, but it is still a requirement, even though those PlanCon dollars are no longer available. So column number 24 is really your true cost of funds, the annual payments that the district is currently making net of that PlanCon subsidy that you receive on several of your bond issues. So we're going to think about the fact that right now, for the next several years, about $9.3 million is scheduled to go out the door to service your existing debt. And you can see that over time, that number drops down to 8.7 million. And then when we get out to 2038, there's a pretty significant drop off down to $3.4 million out through the final maturity of 2042. So what you'll see in the next several pages is how we intend to structure the new bonds for the high school project to take advantage of the fact that you have some budgetary dollars that will be freed up in the future. And we will use those freed up dollars to kind of slot the new debt service payments into in order to try to minimize the impact to your budget for debt service for the high school project. That's been the goal from day one. And we'll applaud this board and this administration and prior boards and prior administrations for really having the foresight to think long and hard about how we structure, how we finance these projects, because this is not pre-2006 when you needed to go up 5% for a new high school and you could do it. We know we can't do that anymore. And so the importance of pre-planning for a project of this magnitude cannot be underscored. And so we do applaud you for having had several years really of discussion about how this was going to work. And now that we're getting pretty close to actually putting bids out there and starting to put a shovel in the ground is exciting, but there's still some work to do. So we're going to detail the most up-to-date numbers on page number 7. This is a familiar schedule to many of you, but there's a lot of numbers on this page. So let me walk through a little bit from left to right how the mechanics of this work, and then if there are questions about it and maybe how it's changed over time, we're happy to answer those. So in column number 2, that is what we reviewed on the last page. That is your existing debt. But we do have column number 3 broke out separately because the financing that we did in 2025 was sort of the seed money towards the high school. So we wanted to, rather than lumping that into column number 2, because we've already gotten that money, it's in the bank, it's been financed, we wanted to still show you sort of the full financing plan. So that's why we kept it itemized there in column number 3. So column numbers 2 and 3 are done, they're locked in, and they're good to go. Where there's still some work to be done is columns number 4, 5, and 6. These are the future hypothetical bond issues that, as of today, if we knew exactly how much bids were going to be, and they were at the exact estimates of the architects, and interest rates didn't move from now till then, this is what the schedule would look like. However, we know that many of those variables will continue to change over the next several years, but it's at least a good pathway forward and a roadmap towards how the board can think about future budgets, not only in this year, but in future years. So what we'll be thinking about doing this summer, market dependent and project dependent, is going out for the next series of bonds. This will be a more substantial issue, as we did $15 million last year to take advantage of some IRS tax opportunities, where if we kept the issuance below $15 million in a calendar year, we were able to kind of keep some of those positive arbitrage earnings that we had, given the fact that the Fed still had long-term interest rates a little bit higher. But now we're at the point in time where there's going to be some serious invoices coming due, and so doing a $15 million bond issue again this year, as we have the last several years, really isn't in the cards, because we're going to need to borrow more than that to fund the full expected draws that'll happen in 2026. So we're looking at approximately a $75 million issuance here in 2026. It'll be slightly less, but there will be some what we call original issue premium on the bonds, to net you about $75 million of proceeds towards the capital project. And the debt service that we expect to be associated with that bond is in column number 4. So those are the annual payments that will be made if interest rates continue to hang in there. We are running these numbers at current interest rates. Fortunately, and as I'll show on the next page, rates have come down a bit since we were last in front of you. And so while we are nowhere near the 2020 and 2021 interest rates that we got so spoiled by, still from a historical perspective, interest rates are at a very attractive level. Following this year's issuance, we would expect 2 more bonds to be taken out, and those are in columns 5 and 6. Again, hypothetical. It will all depend on construction timing. If interest rates are such next year that it makes sense to maybe take a slightly higher bond issue amount because interest rates have dropped, maybe we make that decision. But again, this is a general roadmap to how we get there. We've looked at the expected construction draw schedule and tried to marry the bond draws as closely as we can to that, so that you're not in a crunch where we've waited too long and you've got a new set of bills due in a month and you're short on your bond funds. So we want to be mindful of that as well. But after all is said and done and columns 5 and 6 are enacted, the important part is we need to get to column number 7. So that is the summation of your existing debt and the 4 proposed bond issues for the high school project. So, in layman's terms, we need to go from that $8.5 million debt service number. The current number is $9.3 million. We need to get from 9.3 to $19.9 million. If you see column number 7 there, that is basically the run rate for debt service that we need to get to in order to fund the high school project as we know it today. So we've had a lot of conversations with this board about how to get there, and that is detailed in columns 8 and 9. In fiscal 2025 and for the current fiscal year, the board put aside additional monies for debt service to the tune of about 0.3 mils in 25 and 0.34 mils in 26, and you can see what that equates to in terms of a % increase to your taxes. Assuming everything towards the left side of the spreadsheet stays accurate, then the remaining millage increases that we'll need to fund the project and to get to that $19.9 million budgetary line item for debt service is approximately 0.3 mils a year, which in today's dollars is about a 1.6% increase. And as your budget continues to go up, that becomes a smaller percent of your budget over time, or a smaller percent of a millage increase. But around 1.5 to 1.6% a year for the next 5 years. And at that point in time, you'd be fully funded for the project. I will point out that on the right side of the page there, you'll see that we are generating some surpluses because prudent planning has allowed us to put additional millage aside before we even actually need to pay debt service. And that is poster child, absolutely 100% of the time what we recommend boards do in this instance, because it's going to allow you the benefit of layering these increases in over time versus over a shorter period of time, and will allow us to be able to fund the majority of those sort of shortfalls that we see there in column number 11. Some of those monies were over in the immediate years can be used to fund those shortfalls, so that we're only about $1.1 million needed of district cash, which could either come from interest earnings on the bonds themselves as they sit there before they're paid out in invoices. They will continue to earn interest, or from district reserves or capital reserve or the like. So not a very big hump to get over $1.1 million. We should be able to pretty easily generate that, at least in interest earnings. So
Laura,
that's...
Just a quick question to that particular
Yes.
point. If the value of our mill goes up based on growth, that may not be the case then. We may be able to recoup those costs.
That's exactly correct. Mike, we have assumed here that the value of your mill stays constant and that you don't have any growth in assessments to the extent that you do, and most districts do. This only looks better over time.
So,
Yes, Mr. Keener.
thank you, Mrs. Dable. So, Mrs. Hall, are you on the call? Mrs. Hall?
Yes.
So, as I'm looking at this, and first I want to point out that when we started talking about this project, we were doing, I think, a 4-year ramp-up, right? We are now at a 7-year ramp-up. So, and the millage rate per year of ramp-up, I think, has increased. Okay, so we're ramping up almost twice as many years as we were when we started this project. The ramp-up has increased, and what is that number that we need to cover the CBA? 2% or 1.9? What's the number that we need to cover the new CBA?
I mean, that is a moving target. It's about 2%, but to be fair, these millage building numbers are actually a little bit lower.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Hall, I can't understand
Wow.
you.
These millage building numbers are actually slightly lower than they were in the 5- and 6-year plans, so they aren't higher.
Okay, do you have that handy little chart that we all love so much?
It's on the website.
Pardon me?
Yep.
It's
on the website.
It's on the website, okay. All right, so how much will be left after this and after the CBA? How much of the actual index is left for everything else we want to do?
Well, until I build the rest of the budget, it's hard to say that. I don't know off the top of my head. Because we're going to talk about revenue tonight, but then we'll talk about expenditures in February, and then we'll see what the difference is.
So, Mrs. Hall, I have the chart up. So for the 26-27 adjusted Act 1 index of 4.1,
right.
The debt service there is 1.61. We were initially thinking 1.77, so we are down 1.16.
Yep.
So 2.49% is left as the remaining taxing authority for the district in 26-27.
So how much did you say is left?
2.49.
And that's after the CBA?
No.
I'm saying 2.49 is left as remaining taxing authority for the board. Beyond, you have 4.1, 1.61 is what's up there for 26-27.
Okay, so we still need to take the CBA increase out of that.
2.49 is left for the remaining taxing authority. And then we will update the chart based on new information, and we do that ongoing.
Okay. All right. So is there a reason that the ramp-up period has gone from 4 years to 7 years?
I was able to pull some prior studies that we've done.
And if I'm wrong on that, if I'm misremembering this, please tell me.
No, I've got one here from
We had 6 years before.
February of 2023, but at that time, the project was $150 million, and we were showing a 4-year ramp-up. Last year, we were kind of in the same neighborhood. It was out through 2031. We're out through 2031. We're a little bit higher, again, because the project has increased slightly, but we're still in the same neighborhood. We've toyed with those numbers because as the Act 1 index has come down and we were maybe looking at a slightly shorter ramp-up, it became obvious that potentially doing it over a longer period of time was more feasible.
Right, because the project went from 150 million to 228 million.
It's not correct. The project was never 150 million. That was
Well,
just
that's what I just heard.
I know, but that was a number
That
that
was
was
one of
being
the
used as a possibility, which is why we asked them to run it. What would it look like? And once we actually got through the first phase, and when KCBA and the team was working through things, that's why the board was presented multiple options, and all of those options were well north of 150, because that 150 was just an initial kind of throw out, here's what it maybe could be, until they actually got to look at the buildings. So that's why we had them run those numbers initially, and that's where it started. On our chart that's on the website, it is a 6-year build-up to the project, so 2024 through 2930.
Thank you.
You bet. So I think we've covered the millage study fairly well here. Any other questions on that? I know this is potentially the most kind of non-intuitive chart or summary, but we've got some additional information here related to interest rates and next steps. So if everybody's good, we'll move forward and turn the page here. So on page number 8, again, just wanted to talk a little bit about interest rates. I know you're always interested, and while we still hear mortgage rates being, much higher than we all, again, got spoiled by in the immediacy of COVID, interest rates have begun to come down as a result of the Fed's actions. And, interestingly, we've seen a flattening of the yield curve. And the district, to your credit, was able to take advantage of those opportunities back in 2023, 2024 with those $15 million borrowings we did, and lock in some good positive interest earnings on those before the Fed began their tightening cycles. But the good news is here that while your investable balances are going to see smaller returns in 2026 than they did in 2025 and certainly in years prior, it's translated to slightly lower borrowing rates as well.
Let's upgrade your downtime.
And, the important takeaway here is I would note that we are approximately 20 basis points or 0.2% lower than the 26-year average for this particular interest rate, which is our, kind of standard industry benchmark. So all in all, good news picture when you're talking about borrowing significant funds. Lastly, page 9 is just some potential next steps that we could be taking, assuming that the board moves forward on the Act 34 hearing and accepts bids. So after the Act 34 hearing on February 17th, we could potentially come back to the April 28th Finance Committee meeting to give you an update. We'd update these pages, maybe not go into as much detail on some of the information that isn't as important, but certainly that millage study, that borrowing study, is what we'd hone in on that evening. With then the goal to come back to the May 12th full board meeting for the adoption of the next maximum parameters resolution for the project. At that point in time, we'd be able to be working with the business office and superintendent's office to go through the credit rating, drafting all the necessary documents that go into a bond issue, such that by end of June, we could be selling bonds into the marketplace and settling approximately a month later. That's the general timing of how we would move forward, but obviously a lot will be come known to all of us here as we go through the Act 34 process and the bidding process. So any questions this evening for any of us?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So I think you touched on this. The payment plan, or when we expect invoices to come due, I'm assuming KCBA has given you some like rough estimates of dates, 30% or however much down, yada, yada. So you've built the bonds to match that. That's good. Are the interest rates fixed for the life of the loan?
Yes.
Okay.
95 to 99% of Pennsylvania school bond interest or bond issuances are done on a fixed rate basis. So we know your budget likes as many knowns as possible. So, and especially in interest rate markets like we have right now, fixed rate debt makes a lot of sense. And then just like all of your other bonds that I talked about that have call dates in the future whereby maybe we'll be able to refinance them, we'll be keeping an eye on these high school financings in 7-8 years once we get to the call dates of those bonds to potentially look at opportunities to refinance and save the district some money.
So call date is you can't refinance before that date?
That's correct.
Got it.
So that's kind of the one big caveat between your home mortgage and a bond issue is that investors like some protection when they loan you money that they know you're going to pay them for at least 7-8 years in that range. And so that's the call protection that they like to buy when they buy your bonds. But at that point in time, then it's the district's option to refinance. The bonds can't be put back to you by the investors. It's only the district's option to refinance. So if you get to the call date and interest rates are higher and it doesn't make sense to refinance, you can keep riding those lower interest rates. But I can guarantee if they're lower, we'll be back to talk to you about that.
And then, so you show the 10-year rates, but I noticed some of these repayment plans are ranging from 15 to 25 year. Are those interest rates also following about the same?
Yeah, we just kind of picked generally the 10-year spot on the curve to show, but the long-term borrowing rates, longer 20 to 30 years have also come down, not to the extent that the 1 and 2 and 3 year rates have come down by, because that's really the Fed's territory. The Fed controls the shortest interest rates out there, the overnight lending rate. And so when they move interest rates down, it really affects the short end of the curve. The longer end of the curve is more affected by kind of global macroeconomic forces more so than what the Fed is doing.
Okay.
But they have come down as well.
And then I think the last question, since the interest rates are fixed, how come the payment is different? Is that worked as part of the bond issue?
Yes. So again, to differentiate ourselves from a home mortgage where you're paying the same amount every month, every year over year, we have the ability to structure bond issues in a way that most closely aligns with the district's budgetary goals. So the structures that we're using are called wraparound structures, and you may remember me mentioning, the falling off of the debt service that you have right now. We are, wrapping the new principal kind of around those drop-offs, because if we were to solve this as like a level mortgage situation, the budgetary impact in the next several years would be massive. So we are permitted by the IRS, by the state, to kind of structure these bond issues within certain bounds that we need to have level or declining debt service over time, because the state doesn't want you to take out a 50-year bond payment and punt it to the board 50 years from now and it all comes due then. So you have to have overall level or declining debt service, but it's an astute point, and it allows us to structure the debt so that we're hitting the budget as minimally as possible.
So would it be a correct, very rough estimation that the first several years it's essentially like interest-only payments and we're not really touching the principal until the previous bond falls off and we can start being more aggressive?
In essence, that's exactly what's happening.
Great.
Yes.
Thanks.
I think it just needs to be said, and I appreciate you mentioning this, that the district has spent time preparing for this, putting monies aside. I think we've been criticized in the past for doing that, and as you look at this, you understand the why behind that, because we're able then to take and pull and draw from what I would call a savings for an individual that might not understand, and then offset some of those deficits that you see starting in 28, 29. And they may soften some. I think they will be better than that. However, if you don't plan for that, you hit a cliff, and it gets very difficult very quickly. So I think that just needs to be said from an understanding standpoint. People think that Hempfield School District's trying to get wealthy by putting a lot in the capital reserve, saving those extra funds. That's not the case at all. We're trying to prevent a disaster and be able to do a project that if we do it right, will be smooth.
By the way, I want to thank you guys I've very much enjoyed all your presentations over the years. They've been very informative and educational, and I think you guys are doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Well said, Mr. Best. Mr. Wogelmuth. Lauren, John, thank you for being here, for the presentation, and for talking through all of these numbers. It's a lot to digest. So,
It's our pleasure. We'll see you
all right.
next month.
Very good. Thank you. See you soon. Mrs. Hall, you're online. Anything before we move on to the next presentation? Anything from your standpoint that you'd like to ask, mention, address?
No, I'm good. We can move on to the CTC budget.
You got it. So with that, we will move on to the CTC budget. Mr. Weicker, the floor is yours, sir. If I'm saying your name incorrectly, my apologies. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jeremy Weicker. I'm the CFO at the Lancaster County CTC. I started there in August of 2024, so I'm on my second budget cycle. I used to work in nonprofit, so this is my first time in school situation. And Mr. Romersky and Mrs. Hall asked me if I would be willing to come to the Hempfield board meeting, and I will say that this is the first one I've been to. I was not at any last year for any of the districts, but that is always an option for me to come and talk. I assume that you saw our budget presentation proposal that was sent out in December, the one-page summary and then the more like 10-page detail. This year is unique for two reasons. One, we are in the middle of a CBA negotiation. I know you guys have done that recently. This is my first one. We've had 2 meetings. We were going to have our third one last night, and it snowed. So we're in the back and forth of talking. So Mrs. Hall right now is in the process of doing her budget. Obviously, in December 8th, I had to have this out. So I had to guess about what we were going to talk about and negotiate, which was not fun. There might be, so that's one variable. And the other one is that the state has increased tech ed, vocational education subsidies over the last few years. So as I worked on the budget, it was a zero-sum budget. I get a spreadsheet with 800 lines of expenses, and I talked to all the different supervisors, directors. We have a new director as of yesterday. He has not been in the building yet, but Dr. Scott Long is our new administrative director. I went through and we looked at it from, is there anywhere we can cut? Is there anywhere we need to increase? And we did that. And I think a lot of school districts, I think Mrs. Hall does that well. When it came down to it, the overall budget needed to increase based off the estimates by about $1 million. But the state funding covers most of it. So the funding on average to the 16 districts that we're requesting for the 16 districts to spend on the CTC went up by 0.31%. It's really low, and thanks to the state and thanks to some other things. The major components of that, obviously wages, when our CBA that is in effect for this year had wages increased by 3.4%. Once that goes through PSERS and all the other things, you end up with about a 3.1% increase to pay for that. PSERS, of course, is there. Health insurance, our health insurance fund at the CTC when I got there was $1.8 million. It is, as of today, $965,000. The reason is we're budgeting $2 million for premiums and claims, and we're spending about $2.5 million. Well, that obviously can't continue. So there's an increase of 20% there, $480,000, because we need to fund that. And then other employee benefits went up by a little bit. The sum of all the other line items is a $100,000 increase. But again, this is based off of, this would be a 0.31% increase if the exact same amount of students from Hempfield go to the CTC next year as did on the average of the last 3 years. Why that is how they do the calculations, I don't know. I think it's smooth stuff. Like right now, Manheim Central went way down this year, so their share is going to go down. Penn Manor went way up. A lot more students from Penn Manor. I saw a quote from Dr. Gale that said that 30% of their students have something, of their seniors are at CTC. That's pretty cool. I'm not sure what the percentage is for Hempfield. So it would be a whole lot easier if I made a budget and I said divide by how many seats are in the classrooms and said, well, it's $14,000. And you have 100 kids show up, sign up, and you pay 14,000 times 100. But that's not how it works. There's a bunch of documents from the 1970s and 80s and 90s about how we calculate this. If you have any questions of those things, I'd be happy to talk through them. I've had to learn them over the last couple of years, and actually that caused a problem that you guys heard about. Back in, again, Penn Manor, back in August, Penn Manor's CFO, Dan Forey, emailed me and said, hey, is the budget numbers that you gave us for the district payments the final numbers? And I said, why would they change? He goes, well, it changed last year by a lot. And I'm like, what do you, in my year of working for the CTC, I hadn't heard about that. So with the 16 other CFOs and myself and the consultant that worked with me to help train me on some of the school stuff, we looked at it and we looked right past it. The budget that was presented to you by my predecessor 2 years ago had X amount of dollars coming from Hempfield. And what was actually pulled was X minus $268,000. Cacalico, on the other hand, and I remember this number because they're first in the alphabet, and because I felt really horrible about this. I mean, not that I didn't feel bad about undercharging Hempfield, but they were supposed to pay $838,000 and they paid $1.1 million. I owed them $300,000 back. For the CTC, it was a zero sum because it was just the numbers were calculated, recalculated. They used a year-old data. This was, Frank Ayala was my predecessor and he did the budget, and then Jason Harris was a consultant and he was there in the summertime, and then I started after this was all in place. And between that, there was a mistake made. So working with Mrs. Hall and Mr. Bermersky, we talked through that process. I said, hey, until you guys are comfortable with it, we'll just hold off on that. So I'm grateful that was taken care of, but I hate to have that kind of an error. That error caused me to have this year's numbers off by a little bit. Thankfully, it was like $20,000 maximum, not $300,000 maximum for a difference. So we had to adjust some numbers for this year as well. Now that I understand all of those very convoluted spreadsheets and stuff, I hope we don't have that kind of error again. But again, I send it out to the business managers and stuff and say, hey, check my numbers. Let me know if there's anything that you have questions on. So I know my presentation isn't quite as flashy as the last one. I enjoy hearing about bond issues and learning stuff in that, but I will open myself up to any questions or comments that you all have.
Real quick, the numbers, the way that our portion of your budget is calculated, that's dictated by the state, or that's just the formula CTC has developed over the last however many decades?
It is by our governing documents of when we started. It is an average of the ADMs, the average daily membership of the last 3 years for each district, proportionally. So a student coming to the CCC for a whole day as a senior counts as 2.0 if they show up for every day. A half-day student in our intro programs as a junior count as a 1.0 if they show up every day. So if somebody misses a month for an illness, they would count as 0.89 for a junior. And that's just aggregated together. That stuff gets sent out to your all the business managers for them to review usually with their student services, student information services, and to verify that at the end of the year. And then that's what gets put into a column and the proportion of the county is calculated.
So if we wanted if we were unhappy with the way that that formula is done, we would go through the process locally at the JOC to change that formula.
You would have
It's
to amend
correct.
the holding document.
Yeah, but it's not like we got to go to Harrisburg and get a bill passed.
Not that I know of.
But, Mr. Best, I think it'll actually, I'm not even certain that the JOC, I mean, if it goes back to the formation documents of the CTC back, as Mr. Weicker said, in the 70s, we would need to check. The JOC would be part of it. It might be something even bigger than the JOC that all of the boards would have to agree to.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I would not expect it to, JOC hand down a mandate
Yeah.
that, all the 16 boards can't, chime in on. What I'm saying is we don't have to, we're not relying on Harrisburg to do something if we feel that changes need to be made. We can deal with it locally.
It
other
was
words, it's
last
not in
amended
school.
in 1997, just for instance.
And I just want to say, as Hempfield's rep to the JOC, what a pleasure it's been working with Mr. Weicker for the last year and a half. I'll be candid, as all of you know, I want to be. For many, many years, the business office was the Achilles heel of the CTC. And there was just this parade of people in that job who didn't gain traction, who probably didn't understand the job, and that ended when Mr. Weicker came on, and we're very, very fortunate to have him, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the budget?
Out of curiosity, what'd you do with the $300,000 that Cocalico overpaid?
We
Came from us.
We basically, I literally said that, because what I did is, immediately I said, I'm gonna pay back the ones, we had enough in the bank, I'm gonna pay back the ones that we owe, and I set it up for a couple weeks later to take the money from the ones that we had, or to ask for them, the other district, to send us the money. And I said, if I could get Cocalico and Hempfield together, it's a $10,000 difference, just pay the, if Hempfield would've paid Cocalico, it would've worked, missed by $10,000. But,
So can't do that, but we had to go
Obviously
through,
we
it had to go through the CTC.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth pointing out, but, well, I'm going to do it anyway. I find it interesting that Hempfield is number 2 at the CTC as far as attendance, if I'm not mistaken, behind Penn Manor. But we're number 1 as far as market value. So that's why our portion of the budget is so high.
Right. We're a big, wealthy district, and market value is a function of size and how expensive the houses are and how much business there is, and on those metrics, I mean, we do well. I mean, it's just what gives us a strong tax base, but it also means we pay a little bit more.
Yeah, I thought it was funny seeing the number, $5.8 billion in market value in our district. It's just
If you have
staggered.
you too can own a school district for $5.8 billion.
Yeah, it's just shocking to see numbers that big in something local.
and when was the last assessment done?
2017, so
Right.
we're getting a new assessment next year.
Right.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Weicker? Mrs. Hall, anything to add or comment on or ask questions to Mr. Weicker on?
No.
Very good. All right, Mr. Weicker, thank you. Appreciate your
you.
time tonight. Moving right along, Mrs. Hall.
Yes.
Keep that microphone warm. You're up.
All right. So tonight we're going to go over our very preliminary revenue projections for the 26-27 budget. This will be the first in the presentation series that I put together. We will do a first look at expenses in February, and then every meeting thereafter, we will look at the entire budget combined as we kind of work through it and make changes to it throughout the spring. I'll start with a disclaimer. All the revenue figures are estimates. They will change. We continue to monitor interest rates, our total assessed values for taxes, EIT trends, and grant opportunities as we are looking at going for another DCED facility improvement grant. So these are very baseline. They will change. They will continue to be refined throughout the process. So these are just to kind of get us started on the process. So as you know, our adjusted Act 1 index for 26-27 is 4.1%, and increasing the real estate tax millage by 4.1% would generate approximately $4 million in additional revenue. Because we get about $975,000 in revenue by each 1% of a tax increase. If we were to go to the index, the average household tax bill would increase by $156. And this also assumes, this budget assumes that the 25-26 adequacy funding is added to the foundation amount. So what I mean by that is the amount that we got in 24-25 became part of the Ready to Learn base for 25-26, and we got additional adequacy. So we are making the assumption that that piece will happen. We don't know if we will get additional adequacy, and I have not factored that in at this time. Next slide. Just to show you how our revenue breaks up, we are very heavily funded by local sources. We get about 28% by the state and less than 1% by the federal government. Talk through federal revenue. All the federal revenue we get right at this point is through title funds and through unrestricted grants. The ESSER funding, the very last pieces of it were in 2025. That is no more, so that funding has reduced. You will see the actuals for 25 are a little higher than the budget because at times we do get in prior year revenue and we also have prior year expenses. So the actual is always a little bit different. We budgeted the federal revenue flat. We typically do get final numbers for that before we finalize the budget by June 30th. So these currently sit at the current year numbers, but they will change when we have final numbers before we submit to the state in June. In terms of state revenue, we are budgeting flat to what our 25-26 actuals are going to be. So the 26 budget looks lower because that was based on the prior year actual. So we always budget based upon what the actuals were for the year prior, because we won't get less. So you can see that our basic ed and our special ed is at that level that was announced back in November. The state share of retirement and Social Security, those are placeholders. That is going to be based on a percentage of our total wages. We're still working through expenses. So those numbers are likely to change, probably increase a little bit. So it is a calculation based upon wages. So those will be changed in future presentations. The homestead, farmstead, we also left that one flat because we won't have that number till probably April, May, when we get that in. We have our PlanCon money that comes in to offset the bond payments, our Ready to Learn block grant, which is the foundation amount. No additional adequacy is at this time projected for next budget year. And then we have our transportation subsidy, our health services subsidy, and other forms of state revenue. We don't have anything in for the DCED grant. We are going to apply, and we hope to have an answer for that before the budget's finalized. But those applications aren't due until early March. So we are in the process of doing that right now. Any questions on state revenue? Move on to our local tax. These are just our tax summary. So we're looking at all the real estate taxes and earned income tax. So we've adjusted it slightly based upon the total assessed value as of December. We will continue to get revised numbers from the county on that. So we will change that as time goes on. And we will also get information from them on the EIT trend, which typically performs a little better each year by a small percentage. So they'll have some idea for us what to put in for the EIT projections. Go to the next slide. In terms of other local revenue sources, we have interest on our investments, which we, for the past few years, have done really well on. And it's an area that has some uncertainty. And then we continue to keep an eye on that to see if, we try to be conservative, but we don't know what the market's going to do because we are pretty far out at this point. We have some money in for facility rentals. We are going to see that decrease a little bit in the 26-27 budget. We're going to have to limit the amount of rentals we can do at the high school during the project. We have our athletics and stage productions. Ryan Landis projects those out, and those vary year to year based upon what we are hosting. If we are hosting one of the more popular games, which is every other year, the revenue varies a little bit there. And then we have our marketing agreement with Market Street, which brings in $50,000 in additional revenue. So that is our total local revenue. It's all of our taxes, interest income, the payment in lieu that we get, and then our activity revenue, and our pass-through for our IDEA for our special ed services. To the next slide, which brings us to our total revenue, which currently is sitting at $158.4 for the 26-27 budget. Next one. Next slide, please. That's just I present this every year, just a chart that shows you what the adjusted index has been and what the district's approved tax increase has been as well. And it looks, obviously, they talked about it with Raymond James, that the Act 1 index is projected to continue to decrease, which we've known for a while, but we do have some new projections from the IFO, which they also shared in the next slide. But I've also adjusted those for what our predicted adjusted index will be. So that's what we know as of now. It is slightly lower than they had projected in the last go round. But the further you get away from the projections, the less reliable they are. So they're not that far off from what we initially thought we might get. But it is significantly lower than what we've seen the last few years. So we're going to have to, obviously work within that with our millage built-in for our debt service and all the other expenses with the district. So it's good to plan with that in mind and hope that it's, at least where they're saying it's going to be. And in terms of next steps, we're going to refine our projections and update information. The governor's budget address is now the 3rd of February. I heard Mrs. Small say that. I missed that announcement today. And then we're going to come back on the Buildings and Grounds Finance Committee meeting in February with expenditures. And then we will have a rolled up full budget for the March 24th meeting. That should actually say Finance Committee. I apologize. Any questions?
I have a couple hopefully quick ones.
Sure.
So I know we flat fund, which is great. Don't want to expect more money from the state than we're going to get. But is there ever a risk that we're going to get less? We're other than the one item that you said, assuming that gets rolled into the Ready to Learn block grant. Is there ever any risk that some of those other dollars will go away?
Not the basic, to my knowledge, the basic ed, the special ed, and the state shares for Social Security and retirement are locked in. I have not heard that is set to change in any way. PlanCon is locked in. Homestead, Farmstead really it reduces our local revenue and benefits the taxpayers. I'm just looking at the state revenue slide. I would not budget that would go away.
Okay.
But I also don't like to budget that there's going to be an increase. I think that is more of a risky proposition than assuming there could be a decrease.
Yeah, agreed. And then on the local taxes, some of these are very much, out of our control. We don't necessarily know what we're going to get, real estate tax, interim taxes, delinquent tax. How are you coming up with some of those numbers?
So we're looking at the trend for the year. So we do get reports monthly on what those look like. So we're making an educated guess like we do with most of this based on what we have seen and what the market's doing.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Anyone else with any questions for Mrs. Hall before we start wrapping things up here? All right. Hearing none. Moving on to contracts. Yep, I'm on it. Okay. Yep. Moving on to contracts before we pass things over for Buildings and Grounds. For your reference, you will see a series of contracts. You can take a look at those if there's any questions. Now would be a good time to pose those questions. These are up for approval in 2 weeks from tonight on our February 10th meeting. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It's actually in regards to the one with a $0 amount tied to it, the Magic School pilot. I have a question around that. Well, first of all, I'll just tell you, it says through Mary instead of May, but I'm being a little nitpicky. I recognize there's no cost for this pilot. What I'm concerned about is what precedent do we set not knowing much about this, and is the expectation going to be that we move forward, and what is the dollar amount if this hit the agenda with a pilot and now we can't pull back? We have a traditional problem of saying no to things, especially if they're not bad things, but may not be necessary things, and I don't want this to morph into something that it shouldn't be, even though I'm all for trialing things. Just want to understand the details behind exactly what we're trialing, what our commitment is, because nothing in life is truly ever free. So can you help me with that, Dr. Dandridge?
Sure, I can share a little bit. We will have more information at upcoming ed programs. We have a presentation on artificial intelligence in February, and we'll expand on that later in the month. But specifically to Magic School, that is a product that many of our staff are already using. There's a free version of Magic School, has many of the tools available to educators. Recently, the tech department has been working with the company on expanding to the Pro Tools that gives us some additional oversight of the data that's being used, collected, gives us some better controls as we explore what artificial intelligence tools we want to use in the district. We are able to get 3 months from the company to explore those tools and see if they would be beneficial to the district. At this time, I think there's considerable debate among us as to whether or not we would want to continue with those Pro Tools. And that's why I'd like to be able to explore them for a couple months and see what benefit we would get out of them. I do believe that beyond just the use with our teachers in the classroom, there also is potentially some administrative use that might add some benefit to us on the ability to utilize artificial intelligence in a professional manner that enhances our abilities to communicate in the district. I know that's just an overview with some generics in there. We will have a lot more specifics on it, but that is a pretty well-known and well-respected product in the market, in this fairly early market of artificial intelligence in education.
Yeah, I understand, and I did read board news, and I did see it in there. I guess my question is, when you come and provide the presentation, will you be able to provide us, if this pilot, you go through with the pilot, it's not bad, it's not great, we don't love it, it's not necessary, the free products are working just fine, but this would be a nice, I'll take the Cadillac over the Yugo model at a cost. Can you provide the cost of that for us as part of the presentation for the pilot?
Absolutely.
So I think that stuff's important to know. Resources and cost, that includes, because right now, my sense is that we still have a policy that we've struggled to agree is where we want it to be. So I would be very hesitant to get the cart before the horse and invest in some AI technology when I think we still have some things that are outstanding with a policy. I would rather have that sealed up a little better than moving forward. Again, I have no problem with the free pilot. I think we need to proceed cautiously, though. That would be my only recommendation.
Nope, I think that's well said.
I want to echo Mr. Wogelmuth. I actually already contacted Dr. Dandridge asking the exact same questions. I think as part of, if admin and teachers feel like this is a good product that is worth going through, I think having as part of the presentation, both hard and soft costs as well as hard and soft benefits. It's kind of hard to deal with ROIs when there are some, sunk costs. Like, it's not like, hey, this is going to save us a teacher position. It's not. We're like, we have our staff that we do. But if it's, hey, we actually don't now need a new admin assistant, things like that. I bring it up because we're looking at this at my work as well. You know, it's what kind of benefit is it? Does it make sense? And obviously, there's the benefits if, like, the quality of life for our teachers improve, like they're able to do their jobs more efficiently. Okay, well, that's good. That doesn't help the ROI, but that's definitely a point in favor of spending the money if that's, hey, we're going to help our teachers. But it's also helpful if we get the, like, hey, we're going to spend $100,000 and we're going to earn, you know, save $50,000 a year because of X, Y, or Z.
Go ahead, Mr. Keener.
I have a question about the $350 deposit at Bent Creek. There should be no deposit for that, is my understanding. Okay, so they are not trying to walk back their agreement about waiving the fee. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
They will waive it this year, but not next year. They put that in writing.
Why will they? Okay.
You're welcome to question
Okay,
that.
we
with
need
them.
to circle back on that
Sure.
because if they're going to do that, we need to find another venue. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's a member-sponsored event. The rules are very clear that there should not be a deposit. So, yeah, if they're waiving it this year, we can talk about next year, but no.
Well, part of that could be if they choose to pay for Magic School, we'll pay the $350.
We could do that.
Just
too.
bake that in. It's
Problem
all about.
solved.
It's amazing what you get if you ask for it the right way. Anyone else? All right, very good. That concludes the finance portion of the meeting. Buildings and grounds. Mrs. Brady, you're up.
I'm back. We are looking now, I think, is Mr. Kelmer online?
Yes, I'm here. Good
All
evening.
right. Good evening. He will be giving us a presentation on our ongoing capital project needs and how they are evolving.
Sounds good. And I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
That's great.
Chris, we're not going to see that here. I can throw the presentation up if it's just that spreadsheet.
Yeah, I did. I made, did you have the link? Because while we were during the business part of the meeting, I updated it with a couple updates as well because of the ABE contract being approved.
Can you email it to me?
Yes. Do we want to let maybe Miss James go and then circle back? I don't want to hold, I know it's been a long evening.
Sounds good to me. Does anybody have any objection to that? Okay. Mrs. James, do you want to go to the next part of the meeting?
So I wanted to come to you this evening. As part of the capital reserve, we've talked in the past as to working this summer on a project for 3 of our playgrounds. So those playgrounds would be Landisville Intermediate Center, Farmdale Elementary, and East Petersburg Elementary. In coming up on our cost sheet, we had initially thought that it would be approximately 400, which he's going to share this with you in a few minutes, but we had come up with it would be approximately $450,000. So that cost was just to do the poured in place portion of those 3 playgrounds. In looking at all of this, you're going to see here some issues. So you can see it on the right-hand picture, you can see all the stone that is mixed in with the existing rubber mulch playgrounds at these buildings. On the left-hand playground, you can kind of see that there's some black fabric, and if you can go to the next one, you can kind of see that some of the fabric coming up better. What's happening is that the mulch in these current playgrounds is displaced, is becoming displaced. The children, when they're playing there, the mulch is getting thrown out of the playground area and into the grass area. Into the building, it's getting drug into the building, it's getting drug onto the playground. That mulch is disappearing over the years, and now underneath that mulch is a fabric. That fabric is now coming up, in some cases tearing and has been kind of torn out. And then under that fabric is a stone surface. The stones, because the fabric is gone, the stones are now coming up. So there's really no turning back on this. There's no way of correcting as it is. There's no way of correcting it. So that's why we're looking into the poured in place portion for these playgrounds. In looking at that, I had my representative from ELA work with me to inspect all of the playground equipment and inspect the playgrounds themselves. They have done that, and they have come to the conclusion that we do not need to replace any of the equipment. All of the equipment in those 3 playgrounds is fine, and we can continue to use that. They also evaluated the paving area that's attached to these playgrounds. For Farmdale and Landisville Intermediate Center, they have determined that those 2 playgrounds need to have the paving surface dug up and redone. We thought that they could be just ground down and then recoated, but they're so thin that we can't do that. So we need to do a complete dig out of those. So you'll see, on the next page, you'll see an estimate here. What we're looking at is some of those costs that I just explained that would be associated with the paving part, and also there's some costs in red there, which would involve the curbing. There is curbing that exists on all 3 of these playgrounds that is to hold, technically, it's to hold the mulch in. It does not do that. My thought is that my thought was that we could use that curbing, still continue to use that curbing for the poured in place. That may or may not be the case. We'll have to run a survey. They have to survey it to determine if we can use that curbing. Those costs in red if we can use that curbing, those costs in red would then go away. Those would not be part of the costs. But additional costs that would be involved would be the additional paving that we didn't figure in when we talked or when we looked at this initially. So what I wanted to do was come to you with this, since the costs are greater. I wanted to come to you with this. There's no vote, just trying to get your opinion. Do you want me to proceed with the next steps of this project, or do you want me to not proceed with this? If we decide not to proceed with this, I need to forewarn you that we can't not do anything. These playgrounds are in such disarray, such bad shape, that we would still have to dig everything out and start over again in as far as putting down the stone, the fabric, and the mulch once again. I did get a cost today that Fidavia came up with, and even to do that, we would be talking about, for all 3 of them, we would be talking about $245,950 to do just that. That, in my opinion, because we're doing this already and these are relatively new buildings, in my opinion, that means this is a temporary fix. While less money, it is a temporary fix. You'll be doing this again in a few years. There's not a good way to maintain the rubber mulch. Some of the pros and cons about the rubber mulch. The rubber mulch is a less expensive initial cost. However, as I explained to you, that rubber mulch doesn't disintegrate, but it gets displaced. And so it does not stay in the area that it's supposed to stay in.
I'm sorry, less expensive than the wood?
No, it's already rubber mulch.
Well, okay, but we're replacing it. So isn't wood mulch like we used to use, that's less expensive, right?
Well, yes, it is less
How much
expensive.
less?
But I don't have a cost for that. I don't have a cost for that, but there's no going back to that. Like that's taking a step backwards. The rubber mulch now is and was considered an upgrade from wooden mulch. Wooden mulch needs to be replaced or added to every year. So it doesn't have the fall the protection as the safety protection as what the rubber mulch does, and it certainly doesn't have the safety protection as what the poured in place does. So some of the other, the rubber mulch is an uneven surface, so it doesn't make it very accessible for handicapped students and so forth, as what poured in place makes accessible. The upfront cost is more for poured in place. However, with the poured in place, there is at least a minimum of a 10-year before you really need to do anything to it. So its length is at least 10 years plus. I can tell you right now, we have a 20-year-old poured in place at the high school, and that they use in the preschool, and it's fine. We haven't had to do any sort of repairs to it. I mean, it looks great. So there's an example. I can't speak to the poured in place playgrounds that we already have because we haven't had them that long. But we have also begun to set that precedence where we have now started to switch over playgrounds that used to be the wood mulch playgrounds. We have switched over to the poured in place playgrounds. For instance, that would be the large playground at Landisville Primary Center and the playgrounds at Orangetown and Mountville. I can tell you also that in this process, I have asked ELA to also talk to or take a look at the small kindergarten playground at Landisville Primary Center, which is at the front of the building. Take a look at that playground, turning it into a poured in place, and redoing some of the paving there, as well as the Centerville Elementary Playground, their paving, to have their paving sealed and sealed and coated, and then they would repaint the current courts that are on there. So really what I'm asking for tonight, still doesn't bind us for anything, but would you like me to continue with this process? In the next steps would be, one, to survey to make sure that all of the existing curbings are usable or not usable, and then also to create the RFP. The RFP still does not bind you. We can come back with the bid results to you. I would present them to you. That is when you would decide if you're going to move forward with the bid results, and then we would move into a contract. So that I'm just, like I said right now, I'm just looking to you. Is this something that you want me to continue to pursue or not?
I have a clarifying question from your presentation. The 200 and some thousand that you mentioned, is that for all three of these?
That would be for all three of the playgrounds.
To fix the current problem we have going back to the loose rubber mulch?
Correct. So really what we're talking about with this cost, like you still have mobilization, you still have to remove everything that's existing now, and then you have to start all over again with the stone, with the
I understand.
the material, and then the
So the
rubber
difference
mulch.
is about a $760,000 to $80,000 decision based on moving to the poured versus fixing the current.
Well, but if you look at this estimate, there's costs on here that are for the paving portion at two of those playgrounds. So you can't really, that has to be done as well.
So just break it down for me very simply. What is the gap between fixing what we currently have at all three versus the quote that you have here? What's that total gap? So if it's not 200 and change, is it 500 and change? What are we talking about from a difference standpoint based on repairing what we have versus what you're proposing here? That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Mr. Selmer, I think you were on, you and I discussed that this afternoon. You came up with an amount.
Yes, that's correct. And I can show the budget sheet now. I think that would be a good time because some of the updates tied to this conversation.
Sure, go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
You got it, Wyatt.
I'd like to see the comparison. I'd also like to see the cost for going back to the original design, the mulch.
I don't know that anybody's using wood anymore. I think there are some.
They use it in East Pete. It's over there at the playground.
Not at the
Like
school.
literally, the playground.
Is that accurate?
Not
park.
not at the school. Maybe the park does, I don't know.
Maybe the park.
Are the laws of physics different at parks than they are at schools?
I
mean,
think the
it's
usage, the volume of usage is, I've got to think drastically different at a public park
I
versus
just
a.
want to see what the difference in price is, that's all.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mrs.
No,
James,
go
when,
for it.
when were the rubber mulch installed?
When those 3 buildings were built.
Okay, so it's got about a 10-year lifetime?
Mhm.
And you're saying it's about a 10-year lifetime for the rubber, the pour-in-place?
And I would say loosely, it
Okay.
was a 10-year lifetime. They have been disintegrating very, very much in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, let me preface this with, I hate that rubber mulch. My kids go to East Pete and, yeah, bring it home, or when we go for, stuff, they like to take their shoes off and, run around, and then their feet are, as black as the asphalt. But this is a huge dollar amount, and I'm very concerned about it. You also mentioned we're good with all the equipment, but there's 2 line items here on East Pete, removing the zip line and then installing a new sound garden. Is that still under consideration, or?
Well, that has been a request of the existing principal there. She would like the removal of the zip line and then added the sound garden. She has indicated to me that the PTO would and is considering paying for the sound garden part.
And that's something they've been discussing for a little while now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just surprised the zip line is being requested to be removed, considering how popular it is, but.
I gathering from just, I don't know this, that what she's telling me is it's a problem with fingers, injuries, that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
Understood.
Yes.
And then one other thing that I'd be, as part of all of this information that we're asking for, it'd be really great to be able to see like a 10-year, 20-year lifetime, like estimated total cost in order for us to be able to compare. And I'd be a little hesitant, well, I have familiarity with other playgrounds that have a poured-in-place surface, and there were ongoing maintenance costs at this one playground that I'm familiar with, and it was a lot more than that foundation was expecting, as far as ongoing repair, ongoing maintenance, ongoing restrictions, especially like during the winter. During cold times, it's supposedly it's not great for the surface for people to be walking on it or doing stuff on it when there's high fluctuations in temperatures or when the surface is frozen. I understand kids aren't going to go out when it's really, really cold, but I feel like there's still going to be chances that kids are going out playing on it and, potentially increasing the damage, which then is added maintenance costs. So again, that could just be this one facility and whatever their pour-in-place was. If you're saying the high school has a similar thing and it's not had any problems, then yeah, let's go with that facility or whoever did that. I'm a little leery of the pour-in-place ongoing maintenance. I do agree it's by far the best solution. I just don't, I want us to go in with eyes wide open.
Mrs. James, can you remind me of the difference in usage between the pour-in-place that we've had at the preschool versus what we have or would be using?
Well, it's a considerable difference because that is just used for the preschool students, and so it's not used nearly as much as it is in the elementary schools. We have, K through 6 in the elementary schools and all of their recesses and so forth. So it obviously is more students and being used considerably more than what the preschool would be. I was just making a comparison in the fact that that is 20 years old.
Yeah, it can last longer than 10 years,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Is there any ongoing costs or maintenance for the rubber mulch?
Is there a cost? The cost is constant maintenance of trying to get with no real success, trying to get the mulch back into the playground. And then just if we need to So we have had to add mulch once to the East Peak playground, which that was just a few years in. The thought was there was not enough mulch in it, so we had to add mulch to it at that point.
It's probably because my kids brought it all home.
Part of the challenge is the slope of the playgrounds as well.
Right.
Because the rubber mulch does not stay in a contained area because you can't have high curbs or kids will trip. So when the mulch goes down, then you have issues. And so there's a slope back at LIC, and so everything is going down towards the grass. East Pete is coming onto the playground. So there's definitely challenges with the bed of the...
And then with the port in place, I think when we consider this, we should consider the fact that, with the preschoolers, they aren't using it as much as the elementary kids would be, and considering the life expectancy, outweighing that.
Yeah, but I would also, as a counter argument, now I'm going to argue in favor of it, because it's, I think, probably used much more aggressively in elementary schools. That, I think, is an argument to go with the pour in place, just because it's likely safer, it's less maintenance. I think overall, I'm just saying,
Yes.
in my mind, or from my understanding, when there is maintenance, it's really expensive maintenance, but it doesn't happen that often. Versus, the rubber mulch. And I mean, as you mentioned, accessibility. For our kids who have trouble with mobility, being able to go out and do stuff with their friends, I think, is a huge thing. That's actually one of the reasons. The playground I'm familiar with is Treehouse of Lidditz. That's one of the reasons that they were started was, accessibility.
Right. They can just walk out. The rubber mulch is a very uneven surface.
Yeah. Sorry, one more clarifying question. You said the pavement needs to be redone. That's not any pavement under the mulch, right? That's like
It's the playground, so the basketball courts and things like that, the macadam paving at those two playgrounds is cracked pretty much.
And those would need to be done no matter what the fill is in the playground area, whether it's the mulch.
Yes, that would.
So that cost would likely remain.
Correct.
Okay. All right, is there general agreement for Mrs. James to continue down the path?
I was still waiting for those numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Okay. I believe the sheet's up now?
Yes, it is.
Worksheet? Okay, great.
Where are we? We're going to see a comparative cost analysis on...
I was looking for the all-in cost to take these three and repair what needs to be repaired with the current mulch versus the poured. And I understood that 200 and some didn't include everything, so I'm assuming that number is higher for all three versus the 980. I'm trying to understand what that gap is.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just comment because I took a look at the quote and again, what I came up with was a gap of around 350,000 because there's going to be other work, even with my understanding, even with the rubber mulch, it's going to need to be done. It's not just going to be a simple, rake out the existing rubber mulch and just plop back in new mulch, that there is other site work included. And again, so that's just a rough estimate based on just looking at it quickly. Certainly with ELA would be the ones I think would want to take a closer look at that and maybe provide that delta.
I just have one final, thank you for that. So the gap is 350,000 more if we go with the poured. I just have one other comment. As part of strategic planning and things that you look at, the last thing I would want to do is invest additional dollars into the playgrounds only to have a plan that they're going to be moved, disrupted, or something like that. So I would ask that you've looked at that and that for the foreseeable future, there's not a plan to move the playground, tear it out, make an adjustment for any building projects. And if that hasn't been thought about, that should all be part of strategic planning. The last thing I want to do is put $1 million into this and only to turn around and have it ripped out because we've decided to put an addition on a building somewhere that we didn't plan for correctly. And I'm not being unkind. I just would want to make sure we've thought through that and we're confident we're leaving the playgrounds where they are for the foreseeable future.
That is not something that I've ever been part of a conversation, that there's going to be additions on those buildings that would then affect those playgrounds.
The one question I have is, are we then at the end of the playgrounds that need these upgrades?
The only other, so what I have them proposing is the base bid would be the 3 playgrounds that we discussed, and then I would have them do, as part of the RFP, I would have them create an alternate for the Landisville Primary Center kindergarten playground. With all of those done, the only remaining playground that we would have that would not be poured in place would be the Centerville Elementary.
I just was wondering whether we were in the cycle of then we're going to have another one of these, next year. That was my question.
And I think as part of that, that goes to Mr. Wogomo's discussion of, especially Centerville, that's probably a whole separate discussion, and we should table that.
Correct.
But as far as adding full-day kindergarten, what are we going to have to do to get that? And to Mr. Wogomo's point, if there's even discussion of an addition, that needs to be not on that playground side, which, if I'm not mistaken, at East Pete, the kindergartners are closest to the playground as of today, aren't they?
No,
they're not in that wing?
First grade is in the
Okay.
back.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that if we need to do an addition somehow, it's going to have to be on a different side of the building than the playground.
If we're speaking about East Pete, well, first of all, it couldn't go out the side of the playground because that is, there's a big water basin there, and so it couldn't, the building couldn't go that direction. And then really to go the other direction, there's not enough space. So I guess what I'm telling you is that building just isn't set up that we.
We can't expand, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and that's really the case for all of those, because they're not set up for the infrastructure's not set up to increase the sizes of those buildings. While I know that, I'm understanding that at some point that was the selling point, it's just not set up to do that.
All right, do we have any objection then to Mrs. James continuing down the investigative path on this? Do you have what you need from us then?
Yes, thank you.
Do you have anything, Mr. Bremersky, on the high school project?
No, is there anything else on the capital piece?
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Share?
need to go back
Yeah.
to the capital plan. We skipped over that, yes.
I mean, they're just updates.
Can some of these items be deferred? This meeting has gone on way longer than.
If I could just make one quick comment, and I'll only comment on phase 2 because it relates to the conversation. Ms. James, as she mentioned, we had playground surfacing in as a placeholder in the fall because she wanted to bring it to the board's attention that she was going down this road. Obviously came back tonight with the total project and the site work discussion. You can see by adding that in to the capital planner for phase 2, going into phase 2, we had about $1.4 million, call it, surplus. We were ahead of projected costs. Even adding additional playground work in, you're still up just under $1 million to the good for phase 2. So again, I know there's going to be additional conversation, decision making, but I just wanted to point that out, at least for this part of the conversation. And certainly we can talk about other phases, at another meeting if the team wants to, because I know it's getting late. Thank you.
Chris, just briefly, can you go just show what was added just so the board understands?
Sure. So for phase 3.
Time on this.
Yeah, okay. So phase 3, we added back in several projects that are connected to the high school work. So you'll see those estimates with the 5% escalation on the right. They were added into phase 3, and I sub-aggregated them so you can clearly see in bold what they were. The items for phase 3 that are below the black line were items we had in there. So when you look at the total sub-aggregation at the bottom of the sheet, you'll see that when you get to phase 3, based on a $40 million total capital plan, there would not be enough money to cover everything in what we'll call the revised phase 3 at this point. Unless, again, there may be some grant funding that could go towards that a little bit, like was discussed by Ms. Hall. But yes, that's kind of the update. And then we added a phase 4, which includes the field house, Centerville Middle, and then we added Centerville Elementary, which, as the board alluded to, is probably a much deeper conversation than just this capital plan. But this at least gives you an idea of some of the changes based on the discussions with the high school. For your planning purposes. Thank you.
It looks like basically the existing phase 3 fits in the budget. The revised phase 3 does not.
That's basically almost how it worked out at this point. Again, based on estimates, yes.
Correct.
Or you'll have to move items around. There's going to be a prioritization that may have to occur where maybe things get pushed and pulled within phase 3.
So I'm sorry, are you saying that the phase 3 things related to high school, they in essence increase the cost of the high school project, decrease the cost of a high school project, or are they completely separate and listed elsewhere?
I'm saying these particular, and maybe Mr. Bramerski wants to comment.
Question, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying this is like the whole shebang he's talking about.
Right.
It's not just the high school project.
These
This is the whole
pieces
capital
here
project.
are
Right.
outside of the high school project.
So now we're
But-
looking at 240 million? Why can't we get these things on one sheet so that we know what this project
We've always
costs?
talked about the projects being up to bifurcated. We've had the high school project here and all
And
of
everything
the,
else.
and everything
I
else
get
over
that,
here.
but now we're saying this is part of the high school.
It's not.
It says high school related.
Yes.
Related work.
We've talked through this. If the chiller building, if the high school project happens, the chiller building needs to go, which means we lose maintenance, and with the band, where everything going south of Kaufman, we lose the storage over there, so we need a new maintenance shop. That's where that comes
So
in
it's
as
part
a
of the
piece
high
that.
school project.
But it's
is
not
what-
calculated in that cost. They're two separate pieces. The band parking lot, that is south of Kaufman. Stadium upgrades, site work for the stadium, lights, sound, all of those pieces. That's not part of the high school cost. Anything upgraded to mechanical, like all of those extra pieces. The board has asked us to keep bringing things forward as to the work that needs to be done so it's documented and go out several years, and that's what we're doing. It's not a fun number to look at, and it's not great to see that all this work has to be done, but at the end of the day, now it's documented, and this has to be done. So how we do that, where we go, what that looks like, that's all part of the discussion moving forward, but we are trying to get approximate costs as you're requesting things, so that's what we're doing.
Real quick, correct me if I'm wrong, Kaufman Road is the cutoff, correct?
Correct.
So high school project is up to Kaufman Road with the addition of the baseball fields.
Correct. All that's in.
Everything else south of Kaufman Road is the other path that's got everything else. Now, we're kind of forced into doing some of these as part of the high school project, so I kind of agree with you, Mr. Keener. It's splitting hairs, and it almost seems like really we should just lump it in, but as of now, that's not the plan.
And I appreciate you recognizing, Mr. Best, why I'm asking the question. We would not be doing these but for the high school project. So if, to the extent that this number has gone up, the cost of the high school project has gone up, unless I'm just...
To your point, Mr. Keener, the maintenance building, and the band parking lot.
Right.
Everything else is not connected in any way, shape, or form to the high school project. But there are things that need to be done based on evaluations of the facilities.
And we wanted to be able to bid these separate, so that's
Correct.
why we didn't wrap them into the high school
Correct.
project. There was a reason that they were separated out.
Correct.
Thank you
But-
very much for your presentation. Does anybody else have questions?
No, but to your point though, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, your concerns are more than valid, right? I mean, because it's like, okay, we're nearing $250 million here for one project, and then it's like, oh, but there's still a leak at the Centerville Elementary School roof. Oh, and we still need a new parking lot here, and oh, and now we need new mulch, and oh, and so your concerns are spot on valid, and they need to be discussed. There are reasons why they are split out, though. So hopefully that's been made clear. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
They are ugly numbers.
Yeah,
I acknowledge they are ugly numbers.
Yeah,
but we like to know what's coming.
I wish the board before me, and I'm going to pick on the two gentlemen, would have done this project about 8 to 10 years ago, and these numbers wouldn't look so ugly.
I wasn't living here 10 years ago, but that's a good call.
I still like.
Let's move along.
I'm going to blame Mr. Maris.
Mr. Bramirsky, update us on
Just
the
a very
high school
quick
project.
update, as I shared with you in board news, we're working through some pieces, continue to the land development plan. We had a good meeting Monday, trying to think of the snow days. In terms of updates that we received from ELA and Fidavia, they both combined had a meeting with township engineers to review that land development plan, as well as the in-depth letter that we received back. All signs indicate that ELA will achieve in great depth and detail a land development second submission prior to or by the February 13th deadline in order to make hopefully the March supervisors meeting. Through that process, we are also awaiting updates as to the major permit that will ultimately be needed to do the work, the NPDES permit. And so that's working along with the Conservation District, doing things through DEP. So they continue to move down that path. We're awaiting updates on that particular piece. In the event we are unable to obtain that permit, given the difficulty at times that process may be, we will have to potentially delay some things, but we're not there yet. We are planning just as a precaution as to what that might look like, but we are still holding ELA to the February 13th deadline for a very detailed, thorough, and quality land development submission. Anything else, Mr. Ward?
Real quick question, with any potential delays, is that like a month to month, or is it like if we miss February, we're like screwed?
Ultimately, the issue is it could potentially end up being month to month, but the real challenge becomes
the scheduling over the summer. And,
the baseball field. So construction can begin once we have that permit, but Hummer, in terms of the baseball field, has until late June in order to be able to put seed down, and then through September if we have to switch to sod. But beyond September, it's a no-go for the field for the spring of 27. So
unless we find alternatives,
we're planning for some potential contingencies, but we're hopeful that all will be good, and I will keep you updated.
Cross them if you've got them. All right, you have the schedule for the upcoming meetings under number 5. Our next meeting, the regular board meeting, will be February 10th here in this room, as well as the Education Programs Policy, Personnel, and Legal Committee meetings that night, and we have the upcoming Act 34 hearing later in February. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Linton, any discussion? No. Okay, therefore.
Wait,
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Mr. Keener? No?
You get to stick to one, I'm fine.
Was that your official vote?
No.
No, okay, just making sure. It was all yay, okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.